you've actually made my job a lot easier. So for the remainder of this evening, we're going to have a roundtable discussion, and I don't have everyone's name here listed on the roundtable. Abbey Dixson is going to be with us. As I told you before, Abbey, I've known for probably 25 years. She took one of our courses in Washington, D.C., and she's been practicing as an MES since then, and she does an amazing job. She's in the Maryland suburbs. Susie Dudkey, I don't know if Susie's joined us yet, but Susie is a dynamo. I met Susie at a course in Chicago back in, I think, 1995, and Susie exceeded all my expectations. She actually developed a medical exercise training facility and hired physical therapists. She had a separate section for physical therapy. She actually hired 2 therapists. So she was one that made me say, wow, I guess this stuff really works. Ernie Schamayr and Tony Avila will be here. And I put these 2 gentlemen together because they both came down for our first summit back in, I think, 2015. And I didn't realize these gentlemen have known each other for years. These 2 gentlemen were the catalyst in putting together the concepts of how medical exercise training could be done virtually. Ernie is in Hamilton, Ontario, and Tony is owner of the Body House in Staten Island, New York. Stan Johnson is with us. I think Stan just signed in. Now, I had the great pleasure of driving to Washington, D.C. a few years ago, and I decided to drive north through the Mid-Eastern portion of the United States, which took me right through Johnson City, Tennessee. And I stopped and saw Stan. He is the owner of, I believe, MedFit Training Services. Stan, I may have that wrong, and I'll let him correct that during the roundtable discussion. And I just decided to stop in. It was unannounced. I just stopped in, and I met Stan. And what I didn't realize was he actually had a health club there that was almost exclusively devoted to medical exercise training. I was like, wow. That blew me away. And fine gentlemen, we got a chance to visit a little bit, and we've stayed in contact. And Stan is a huge college football fan, as am I. So we text back and forth, and he's agreed to be with us this evening. We got a couple other folks that are with us. Rosa Gilmar, she is owner of a medical exercise training facility, and I believe it's Abbotswood, British Columbia. Which is in Eastern British Columbia. And as I said, she took our course in Calgary years ago. Also with us this evening is Colonel Angela Thrasher. Now, I saved her for last. Now, Colonel Thrasher, many of you know I was an Army officer, and being an Army officer, I eventually became a major in the Army. And with being a major, I am outranked by colonels. So she is the one person on this call that 100% outranks me. And so she's going to join us for our segment this evening. And we thank her for joining us. Angela is a naturopathic doctor. At least she's taking her naturopathic boards sometime in the next month or so. And she's been working with our MES, our advanced MES program. She's been to Houston a number of times, and she's been a godsend for our students. So what we're going to do, starting at 7:30 Eastern, we're going to shift gears into a roundtable discussion. And the roundtable discussion is really going to look at the idea of how these individuals that I've introduced have navigated their way.
You in? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Let's mute ourselves here and make sure everybody's muting themselves as they come in. Okay, all right. Everybody's muted at this point, I think. My apologies there. All right, so that's what we're going to do this evening. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern time. And at 9 a.m. Eastern time, we'll start with an interview with the owner of Medical Fitness Pros, Jason Hodge. He's been a big supporter of us for the last 15 years. And we are broadcasting this from Medical Fitness Pros here in Katy, Texas. We're a western suburb of Houston. And Jason will be in tomorrow. Maybe we'll give you a little short tour so you can see what's going on here. But we are happy to have all of you here. As I said earlier, when I left my home to come over this evening to do this, I thought to myself, you know what? This isn't an issue of meeting new people. This is saying hi to old friends. Some of you I've known, as I said, for 20 plus years. So give me just a second. Let me bring all the folks in that are going to be part of our roundtable discussion, and we will go from there. And with our roundtable participants, I'm going to ask you to start your video cameras, if you don't mind. I'm going to ask everyone else, if you would please, to continue to mute yourselves. And hopefully you have good lighting so we can all see you and see you well. All right, Rosa is there. Let me see. There's Tony. Hey, Tony, how you doing, man? And I'm going to unmute everybody in just a second. There's Stan. Hey, Stan, how are you? There's Abbey. Abbey Dixson. Hey, Abbey, how are you? And Susie has not joined us yet, but she will in a few moments. And let me unmute some folks here. All right, I'm going to ask our panelists to unmute themselves. Okay, Rosa, I think you're unmuted. Let's see, Abby, let's ask you to unmute. And let's see who else here. Francois will ask you to unmute. Tony, I think you're already unmuted.
Yep.
I think we're good. I don't see Ernie yet. Hopefully Ernie's coming.
I just called him. Ernie's going to be on a little bit.
Okay, good enough. All right. All righty, folks. You know what? I feel like the manager of the Yankees. I got an all-star team here. When I was thinking about that coming over here today, I'm like, look here. All I got to do is just sit back and let you guys talk. I don't have to do anything. So to our roundtable participants, thank you. And I am going to say it again. You guys are our all-stars. I wish that we could all come together in one place at some point. For those MESs that are struggling right now or relatively new to the profession, they need to meet some of you folks so you can share some of your wisdom and just share some of your success stories with them. So for our roundtable discussion, I have some questions here. I don't know what to do with them. For our roundtable discussion, I'm just going to ask everybody, if you would, just briefly introduce yourself. Let us know who you are, where you are. Now, we've got 2 hours for this segment. So I'm going to ask everybody to introduce themselves. And let me see, Rosa, I think you are the most northern participant in our roundtable discussion. So to have some rhyme or reason as to how we're introducing people, I'm gonna let you go first, if you don't mind. So if you don't mind, Rosa, tell us who you are and where you are, and when did you take the MES course? And then we got some other questions for you after that.
Certainly. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. We hear you loud and clear.
I'm actually from Sparwood, BC.
Sparwood, I'm sorry.
Yes, that's fine. Thank goodness I'm not from Abbotsford. They're flooding over there terribly.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
the weather's really bad there. I'm happy to be here. I've been an MES since, well, I think 2002.
Wow.
So I took the course in Calgary.
20 years. Wow.
Yeah, and I must say that you've been a big support for me, and you're right. We definitely are bridging the gap. I live probably about the closest person I know that's an MES I just met, which is Francois, and
Okay.
he would be in Calgary, which
Uh-huh.
is probably about 3 hours for me.
Okay.
But it's been an interesting journey.
Yes. Yes.
COVID
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
COVID has really been a change for me and for, I'm sure, all of us.
Yeah. Okay. Let me see. Ernie's not here with us yet. Tony, I know you're in New York State, so I think you're the next person north. So we're going to work from north to south. No, I'm sorry. It would be Francois. That's right. Francois. Tony, give me, my geography isn't the greatest. My apologies. Francois, will you introduce yourself for me, please, sir?
Sure. My name's Francois. I'm in Calgary, Alberta. Picture behind me is Lake Louise. It's one of my favorite places to hang out summer and winter.
Okay.
And I've known Mike since 1995 in Apache Junction, Arizona. So we've hung out.
Does anyone
together.
know where Apache Junction, Arizona is? Have you ever heard of it? It is a suburb of Phoenix. And we ended up there. We wanted to do a course in Phoenix. A guy that owned a small club contacted us, and we did the course there. I ended up living in Phoenix years later, and it actually now is a growing suburb of Phoenix. So we met in Apache Junction. What was that, 25, 26 years ago?
Yeah, 1995, because I found out about your course, and I'm going, okay, December in Ottawa or December in Arizona. Done. So
that was a no-brainer, huh?
Yeah, no, it was great. And same thing as Rosa mentioned, over the years, you know, when I've had going, what do I do next? It was great to be able to either email you, give you a call. Nowadays, it's text you. It's great. You know, the support's been awesome.
Well, thank you, sir. Let me see, Tony. if you would, please, sir. Tony Avila. Tony's in Staten Island.
I'm
Let's hear the boys from New York.
Yeah, Yankee fan. So I'm from Staten Island, New York. I've been in MES, I believe it's 12 years now.
Wow.
I'm about 30 years in the industry, and I heard about this program from my good friend Ernie, and we were in another networking program, and basically I was kind of frustrated because I had gone through the FMS program, CSCS program, and corrective exercise, and I was really looking for something that was going to take me to the next level to differentiate myself and also take me away from my frustration of looking to bridge the gap. So I didn't understand that there was this thing that could really clear that abyss. So when Ernie put it together, when Ernie told me about it, I jumped on it right away. I actually drove from New York to Washington, D.C., if you recall, Dr. Mike.
That's right. That's right. It was the D.C. course. I couldn't remember which course it was that you took. Okay.
Yeah, I drove from D.C. and drove from New York to D.C., took the course there, and it was life-changing for me. And actually came back, when you came back to New York a couple of years afterwards, I took it again. I sat in on it again in New York, and this has been completely transformational for me in my business. And this is a picture of my studio here. I'm not in it, but this is the virtual background. So I'm happy to be here today.
Wow. Wow. Okay. All right. Now I got to work my geography here again. Tony, thank you for being with us. Stan, I think you're next, coming south. So this is Stan Johnston. This is my Saturday morning texting buddy here.
Well, at least it's been a little bit better this year with Tennessee. We at least won a few games. So,
and you know what, folks? We are college football fans, and I was thinking Stan's first comment is going to be about the Tennessee Volunteers.
well, we're not in the negative, so we're doing all right. My name's Stan Johnson, and we're trying to figure out when my MES was 2000, 2001. Area. I wish I could tell you exactly what year, but
I don't know myself either. Yeah.
It's somewhere in that area anyway. One of those 2 years. It's been a transformational setup for me too. I've taken it in some different directions, and we've talked a lot over the years, not just about football, but some other stuff I've been doing, and it's been a great journey. It really has, and I've taken a fitness center and turned it into more of a medical exercise fitness center. And it's tough turning the ship. That's a big ship to turn, and we're still turning it, but it's going.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Ernie, is Ernie here with us? I see Ernie. Ernie, I don't hear you though. Let me make sure I unmute you. My apologies. Let me ask you to unmute.
Unmute, you got me there?
I got you. Folks, this is Ernie Schamayr. Ernie, if you would introduce yourself briefly. Tell us who you are, where you're from, please, sir.
I'm Ernie Schamayr. I'm originally from Montreal, Canada. I now live in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. As you can see my flag in the back there. I've been a personal trainer since 1993, medical exercise specialist officially since 1996. I've had 3 physical brick and mortar locations over the years, and I've been about 95% virtual since the first lockdown began. So I'm essentially doing my training all online for the most part, unless there's a safety issue with somebody who needs me to be there in person with them. And I've had the 2 best years that I've ever had in business since 1993 doing it this way. So that's my story. I apologize for being a few minutes late, guys. I had a bit of a family emergency to take care of. So now, that's it.
Also, I think there is a 27th year anniversary going on someplace. Is that correct? Is it 27th?
Yeah, that's not the emergency, by the way, but it's my wife and I, it's our 27th anniversary today.
Congratulations, my friend.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Congrats. All the blessings to you. Thank you. Let me see.
Thank you very much.
Abby was on a minute ago, but I don't see her. So maybe she's having a little bit of technical issue.
I'm here.
There you are. Where are you, Abby? I don't see you.
You see me?
No, I don't.
Let me do it again.
Yeah, I see Abby.
There
I
she
see
is.
Abby. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
You see-
Yes, ma'am. Abby, if you would tell us a little bit who you are and where you're from, if you would, please, ma'am.
Okay, I'm Abbey Dixson. I am from the Washington, D.C. area. Actually, originally I'm from New York City, but I've been in the D.C. area for many years. And I became a certified trainer in the early 90s and met Dr. Mike. In 1994, I was at a personal training conference in New York City and went to his table at the expo and was intrigued by this post-rehab conditioning specialist, medical exercise specialist program that he was presenting. And so since he was then in DC and I was at 10 minutes from where his physical therapy practice was, I went down to meet him and took, I believe, Dr. Mike, your first MES course.
You were in that first course?
Yes.
Okay, right. We had it at the Quality Inn on Hill Road.
1994.
Wow. Okay, you're one of the original 14. I didn't realize that, Abby. Oh man. Okay.
And so I'm a relic. I'm a dinosaur.
Wow, I didn't realize that, Abby. Oh my goodness, I didn't realize that. Well, hello. All over
So
again.
I have been, my studio, this is my studio in Harry County, Maryland, Laurel, Maryland, which is smack in the middle between Baltimore and Washington, DC. And I have, when I first became certified as a personal trainer, one of the first clients I ever had was a diabetic. And I was like, how do I help this person? I feel so inexperienced with understanding the dynamics of how to help a person with this condition. And then I met Dr. Mike and I became much more equipped and I found myself gaining a lot more confidence and knowledge base to work with medically based clients. And I have been doing this now for 27 years.
Well, this is my all-star team. You guys make me look good. I can just sit back and kind of call it a night. But I want to ask you guys some questions, if you would, please. So we sent out 4 questions to you, and we got a little bit of background noise going on here. I think we had an iPad that just joined our.
That was me, Mike.
Okay.
Yeah, I was on my phone here, so I'm on the iPad now.
Not a problem. Okay. So we got 4 questions to our panelists, and I'm going to let you guys just kind of do a free-flowing thing here. You can share information with each other. You can ask questions with each other. Because I think the power of this is the collective. You folks, I think collectively have been doing this. Let's see, Abby, you said 27 years.
1994.
So that's 27 years. Rosa, I think is 20 years. Ernie is.
I was 1996, Mike.
96. Okay, so
in Toronto, yeah.
Yeah, so that's almost what? That's 85 years. Tony, I think is what, 15 years. So we got more than 100 years of experience here. And that's why I wanted to get you guys together on this roundtable discussion. So here's the first question to the group. How were you and your practice impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic? What happened? What happened? When all of this went down, what happened initially? Please, anybody.
I will tell you, I was down for a very, very short period of time. I was actually down for probably less than a week. It was really interesting because I mean, I still do some level of fitness training, but my clientele has really come to rely on me because the initiation of their introduction to my services primarily comes from people who are having some level of medical or orthopedic challenge, right?
Okay.
So there was a big sense of desperation about not being able to continue the service. So when I was initially thinking about what I needed to do, because I'm in New York, and New York was like the epicenter. As a matter of fact, I'm on Staten Island. New York was the epicenter, and Staten Island was the epicenter of New York. So that's how challenging it became. And it was one of my clients who said, "We're going to go virtual, right?" And I was like, yeah, we're going to do that.
We're going virtual.
Yeah. And fortunately, throughout the years, I had already made the capital investment in multiple iPads, I had a camera, So I had all the equipment at green screens. I had all the equipment available because I had done video production as a part of marketing my business.
Okay.
So I was super fortunate to keep the vast majority of my business going virtually almost right away. And it helped me considerably because when everybody was taking weeks to figure it out, I was already off and running.
Okay.
And then I got kind of lazy because I didn't want to go back to my studio because I got comfortable at home.
Let me go to one of our Canadian friends, Rosa. What happened initially with COVID for you in your practice? How were you impacted right off the bat?
We were actually completely shut down, including physio, chiro. So we were shut down for 3 months here. So we had to follow protocol. I am not very tech savvy. So I, basically was doing programs that they would pick up. I went equipment, followed up by text messaging. We did receive government assistance during the time that we were closed down. So that was really helpful. I'm in a pretty large building, so I didn't want to give it up. So we just did the best that we could just to keep open.
Okay. How now that initial shutdown, that was about 3 months you guys were shut down.
Yeah, it was 3 months.
Okay.
And it was really difficult for a lot of the clients too, because not only, were they not able to have their physio, it was completely a shutdown for them as well.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
What province are you in, Rosa?
I'm in BC.
Okay, got it.
Just joining in with Rosa, very similar in terms of restrictions going on, because I think each province had a different mandate to some degree. And one of my clients was coming out of knee replacement surgery, had the scheduled visits with the physiotherapist with the provincial health system, but asked me the questions like, are we still continuing? So I actually looked into the restrictions or the modifications that we had to do. It was kind of interesting because I could actually visit somebody at somebody's home. So there was a gray zone for me, and I'm going, well, I could still stay open. So, which is fine because I didn't really fall into kind of a blessing with the MES. There's no definition of where I fit in.
Yeah.
So I was in the gray zone, so I could still technically operate. And a lot of my appointments are just one-on-one sessions anyways. So kind of a little bit of a blessing that way.
Yeah. We ran into the same thing here in Texas. We were kind of in a gray zone. And the thing that saved us was many of the clients actually had referrals from physicians, which meant that now we could actually be classified on the medical side of things. Stan, how did you guys do? What happened initially for you guys in Tennessee with COVID?
It was kind of interesting here. We have the fitness part, so it was shut down for 6 weeks.
Okay.
But we have our medical part, and initially the first week, all our individuals wanted to come in. So we did it for about a week, but it got to be dicey whether that was in the legal range or not.
Right.
We were lucky in the fact that we have a couple big contracts where we go in and do medical exercise training. The city of Kingsport, which is where we're at, we have a big contract with them, and we reached out to them, and they said, as far as we're concerned, you're a service we need, and so you can go ahead and go. So we got to keep that one going.
Okay.
Which is about 60 visits a week. So that was good. We did get shut down out of another couple of contracts we have. So we got to keep that one going, but that was the only one.
Okay.
But after 6 weeks, it came back quick for the individual side of things.
Okay. Abbey, what happened there in Maryland with the shutdown? Because I know Maryland had some pretty stringent guidelines. How did you guys navigate? And if I'm not mistaken, you're in a private studio that's actually on your property. Is that correct?
Yes. So I did have that advantage. We were locked down pretty much from March to June with some exceptions. And since I was in that gray zone as well, initially the first 2 or 3 weeks when everyone was just in like this paralysis, mindset, gradually clients would start to communicate to me, you know, I really need to see you. And we would try, I set up the virtual component within a week. But for some individuals, that was just not cutting it because certain equipment I have here really was what was helpful for them in their strengthening program. So I would, you know, be leaving weights out on the front stoop, and you know, we would just
and the fitness gremlins would come by and grab them and take them out.
Exactly.
And pass them
Exactly. I had a couple of clients who have pretty bad orthopedic issues, bad with the knees and the hips. Actually, you know, call me and say, "Can I just drive into the driveway and I'll open the door and we'll double mask, and 6 feet away, can you just look at my leg and see what you recommend?" It was just crazy learning how to pivot and be creative and stay within the safety requirements. And I remember calling Dr. Mike within a week and saying, "Oh, what do we do? I'm going the virtual route." And I still have 2 or 3 people who are still on virtual, who have people that they live with who are at risk, who could still come into the studio. But as soon as the restrictions in my county, in my part of Maryland, were lifted, people started coming back. And there's still some reluctance, you know, with every new variant. But being a medically based practice, and I also teach group fitness classes here in the studio, Pilates, stretching classes. I have a mixture now. It's kind of a hybrid, some still on Zoom, some in the studio. But it was extremely challenging and difficult at first. And unfortunately, you know, there were some grants and some SBA initiatives that help financially to keep some buoyancy, but it was very challenging. But
I'm sorry, Abby, forgive me. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Let me ask this, and in Abby's point about the financials, how many of you actually communicated with other fitness professionals, not necessarily medical exercise specialists or medical exercise professionals? How many of you communicated with other fitness professionals during the early stages of the pandemic? And basically, they told you they were pretty much completely shut down, but you were able to still have some clients coming in because of the medical component that you were doing. How many of you actually talked to other trainers that were just decimated completely?
Well, that's the word I was getting ready to use. The industry in and of itself was pretty much decimated for a great period of time. I mean, I still do have some friends in the conventional fitness area, and I know some people who are going from, like, you know, 40 sessions a week to 0. Yeah. Especially the ones that were reliant upon the big box fitness clubs that just simply in our area could not be open. And there was a great deal of turmoil in terms of them not just having this location to go to, but not even having the bandwidth of really even going to people's homes, because most people were not open to that option either. So it was a big challenge.
Yeah. Rosa, in where you are there many trainers in Sparwood there where you are?
There was.
Okay.
One facility completely closed down. And the other facility is run by our district. So they were basically under the same restrictions and following protocol as I am.
Okay.
So,
Stan, how about there in Tennessee? Did you see other fitness facilities in the community that were shut down and have not come back at this point?
There's been a couple that have not come back, and they were all shut down. We were the only ones actually doing anything during that 6-week period. We were lucky enough that the medical provided that for us.
Okay.
Luckily, I own my facility, even though it's kind of a big box place. I got to choose whether we got to stay open for the medical or not.
Good for you.
So that helps, you know. I honestly think other people might have been able to help with that on other places if they were in a big box.
Yeah.
But it would have provided a little bit. But there's been a couple small places that did some training that are gone.
Mhm.
The bigger places, I think some of the trainers have left and went other places. But they were done for quite a while.
Yeah.
And honestly, even mostly through the summer, I don't think they were actually doing much training. And
Mhm.
we were the only ones back at it.
Okay. Well, now
Hey,
we
Mike,
talked about.
Mike.
I'm sorry.
I was going to say, in where I am in Ontario, I was locked out or shut out of I couldn't go into my facility for 6 months.
Wow.
I also didn't qualify for, there were some very, very generous assistance packages from the Canadian government, and I didn't qualify for any of them.
Wow.
So for me, I've made the announcement, if everybody remembers, it was going to be 2 weeks. I sent out an email to everybody. We're shut down for 2 weeks, and I figure I'll take 2 weeks to write new programs or do whatever. I don't know, catch up on paperwork. Then it was pretty clear 2 weeks later. In Canada, we have Good Life Fitness is the major, big commercial gym. So we kind of follow their lead. So they were shutting down for 2 weeks. Then after 2 weeks, when I was about to reopen, they announced they were extending it. And anyway, it went on for 6 months that I couldn't see them. So I was still paying rent without being able to be in my facility for 6 months. Literally the first day. So I sent out the email saying we're going to shut down, hang in there for a couple of weeks. And I had a client message me and say, listen, we're supposed to meet tomorrow. Why don't you just call me on FaceTime? I said, I've never done a FaceTime call before, ever. Never. I took my son's iPad, his 10-year-old iPad, called her on FaceTime. I got to see her home gym. I worked with her. It was so seamless and so easy to do that I thought, okay. So I emailed a few more clients. So the first week, like I had gone from 55 or 60 appointments, and I'm a solo trainer, to 14 the first week. And within several weeks, I was back up to 40. By the time the 6 month period came around, I was doing as many or more than I was before, all virtual. So after that, the 6 month mark, I actually terminated my lease in the building. But first I took a poll of all my clientele, if they would be comfortable coming back, before the vaccine was there, if there was a vaccine, stay virtual. I gave a few different options, and it was 93% came back that they want to continue virtual. So even when things did open up, I mean, that there's no way I could go back to in person because there was literally no demand for it. So even my long-term, I've had clients for like fitness clients, 10 years, more, 15 years, like people I've been seeing in person for years. They just love the virtual thing so much. So we've been, ever since I shut down last September, like at the 6 month mark, it's been all online. Now I'm seeing a few. Now I've got many clients that I've never even met in person one time. It's all been through the screen. Most of my clients, I also write a newspaper column for the Hamilton Spectre. It's a weekly column, so I get a lot of people coming through that column. So it's I've kind of positioned myself to already know who I am before they call me. They just want to work with me. But for first-time clients, now that we're allowed to see people, I will go and I do the initial consultation if it makes sense. If geographically, with travel, I'll see them in person for a consultation, the assessment in person in their home, and then they go into virtual training. The other thing that's happened is since the shutdown, I now have clients in British Columbia, Halifax, Quebec, Northern Ontario, Eastern Ontario, and I'm in Southern. So the geography, my clientele has gone across the country. People because it looks exactly the same working with somebody next door as it does the woman who I see in Squamish, British Columbia. So
now,
it's expanded my range like that. So
now, one of the reasons why I wanted Ernie to be on and Tony, number one, they're part of our MedXPRO network, but also because of what they've done with this virtual training. I really look at virtual training as it was a lifeline to keep a lot of people going. But I think one of the things we have to do as medical exercise specialists is we now need to come up with guidelines on how we actually provide and how we administer virtual training services. And I know Tony and Ernie are going to be with us tomorrow.
So Mike, if I can say one thing is a couple things that I really tightened down to do it because, and I think I'd actually reached out to you. Sure. We spoke about this. I just really tightened down anything that was related to safety. For instance, I have, for each client I work with, I have a book, which has all of their, my client notes, my charting, all that kind of stuff. Well, now everyone on the very last page, and it's highlighted in neon marker here, in case of emergency, their address, phone number,
Gotcha.
any medications are on, any allergies, their, anything in case I need to, call EMS, EMS alert that it's right there. And it should be there anyway, but I mean, it's I've just tightened that up even more.
Yeah, I remember we talked about that. Okay.
Yeah. And the way that I've always worked, is most of my clients I don't see regularly. I might see them once a week, once every 2 weeks. So I've always done a lot of, I meet them and then I assign homework that's really specific with handouts, that they're working. So it's almost the same. The advantage actually of doing it virtually like this is I actually see where they're training, what they're doing at home. Whereas I used to give them their homework and then I have no idea what their home setup is like. I see them 2 weeks later. Now I'm actually seeing them in the environment where they're doing most of their work.
Now, one of the things I wanted to come out of this roundtable discussion was the idea of this group possibly collaborating together on virtual training guidelines for the medically based client. This group has had enough experience over the years that obviously in person you can do this, but now we have to start thinking about how do we do this virtually. I'm a firm believer that the more experienced clinician will do better virtually than the younger clinician, but the younger clinician will grasp it faster because they grasp technology faster. There's a certain thing, the eye of the clinician to see things and even to be able to see things on camera that you would see also in person. I think there's a certain component of that that's necessary as we move forward, because Ernie, as you said, and other people have said, virtual is not going away. It's part of our new way of life, and we might as well get used to it. But with that, let's see if we can now refine it and make it a little bit better for our medically based client, especially with the assessment process, where the client is exercising, what type of equipment they need, so we can now get more consistent outcomes along the way. Which leads me to the next question. Where do you guys think medical exercise training is going? Now, we've been through this pandemic and we're still in it. So let me make sure I give it its just due. We're still in the pandemic. Where do you see medical exercise training going? Because eventually we're going to get out of this thing. It's just a matter of time. Where do you see medical exercise training going? Anybody? And you know what? Before I say anybody, let me ask Colonel Thrasher. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Angela. She was a career Air Force officer as a physical therapist. She took our course, I guess, back in the early 2000s and actually implemented some of our medical exercise training guidelines in the Air Force's, her physical therapy clinic as an Air Force officer. And she's been helping with our AMES program. She's done a great job. Let me ask this of her first, because she's also in naturopathy school. So Colonel Thrasher, if you don't mind, and everybody, I have to say ma'am to her. So I'm kind of the second ranking officer here. There you go, Tony. It's like, yes, ma'am. Where do you think all of this is going? What you're seeing?
It's insurance caps, because everybody follows Medicare. The cap, I think, this year is only like about $2,000.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yes,
Okay.
It's not that much. And yeah, remember,
Angela, if I may, Colonel Thrasher, let me interrupt. What she's saying is the cap for services that Medicare will provide here in the United States is $2,000. That's it. You're done. You're a physical therapy patient. You're covered by Medicare here in the United States. Is it $2,000 per condition or $2,000 for the year?
I think it's for the. I think that's the total cap. Period. 2,000. It's like $2,110. And remember, they're only paying 80% of that.
Right.
So that takes it down to about 1,600.
Right. So with that being the case, please continue on.
Well, it's the need is going to be huge. The baby boomers. That's going to be a big piece that's driving it. This generation, every day, I think there's like 10,000 people turning like 65, and that's going to happen until 2030.
Mm-hmm.
And that group is very diverse, and they're not, all of them aren't sedentary. So that's going to drive a piece of it. The need is going to be there. Physical therapy is going to, I did not do civilian physical therapy. And I probably wouldn't last but about a week if I lasted a week in it, because I wouldn't. I just couldn't. The doctors tell them what to do and for how long. 3 times a week. It's usually 3 times a week for 4 weeks. They get their 12 sessions. I saw it happen in the Air Force as well. Once they get their money, they're done.
Mm-hmm.
The person just gets discharged and they're just flapping in the wind. And if they don't find medical exercise specialists, they're going to go to personal trainers.
Mm.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But in physical therapy, the goal is never to return the patient to 100%. It's usually about 70, which I think is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not something I ever did. If you wanted to get back to whatever it was that you were doing prior to seeing me, that's what I did.
Okay.
But the need for medical exercise, huge. If you learn how to step into that gap, develop those relationships, and I don't think it's going to be that difficult. For some of the people that I know I've been talking to, you guys, especially from the fitness arena, you get people walking up to you, asking you, or DMing you, or contacting you on Facebook. Once they do that, that's your foot in the door.
Mm-hmm.
Just send the facts over to the doc, get them to sign off on it, and that's the beginning of that relationship.
Yeah.
I think that's the easiest way to do it. I don't think you have to court them. I don't think you have to take them out to lunch. I don't think you have to do all of that. Will some of that be required? Yes. In some instances, yes. I don't think it'll ever all go away, because that's the way that they're used to being courted. They're used to being courted that way. But the need is there. It's already there, and it's just going to be a matter of time. And I think Dr. Jones, he's always been able to hit the nail right on the head. It's going to explode.
Yep.
And if you guys are ready for it, you'll probably be overrun and overwhelmed, but the need's going to be there, and it is not going away.
Yeah. Anybody else? The future of medical exercise training, and I'm going to step out for just 1 second. I just need to grab a cord to charge our computer here. Anybody else? Your thoughts on medical exercise training? And if you don't mind, I'm going to pick someone. Stan, I know you have a very unique background. I know at one point you used to set up physical therapy clinics, I think for Health South or one of the large companies. Now that you're doing this solo, what do you think as far as the future for medical exercise training? What do you think?
I think there's, we've taken a different route. I think there's 2 parts of it. One is the part that we've always talked about, which is getting the people after physical therapy. We know they're not even close to where they need to be most of the time. And you're, Dr. Thrasher, you're exactly right. It's out there. Getting people in sometimes is a problem, but once they learn what we do, it's a whole lot easier. I think that's going to be there forever. And honestly, cost structure, we do everything just private pay, and it ends up being a whole lot less than insurance. So we can get that. I think it's there to be had, because it's getting so expensive for these people to go to physical therapy. We're actually getting people that the orthopedic guys are just calling us and send them straight over to us. Because they didn't need the lower level physical therapy. They just need medical exercise training. The flip side of that, I'll tell you right now, I'm in my 3rd investigation by the state of Tennessee and the PT world. PTs keep turning us in that we're doing physical therapy, and we keep proving that we're not.
Yeah.
So that is going to be a challenge going forward, because I think we're starting to take some of the people that they probably could come to us or them pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
I think the future, at least and I can tell you, this is a big part of our future, is actually preventive. That's what we're doing for companies now.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going in there and we're getting people before they get injured, but we're doing the medical exercise training to them. So what you do is you go in and they're allowing anybody that has an ache or a pain or any concern, and they come see us. So we do imbalance testing, we do range of motion, and we actually do ergonomics with them also. So we're going out to where they're at. So we're actually able to target exactly what they may need before they actually get hurt. And so we're saving a lot of money for these companies. And I honestly believe that's as big as anything out there. We're doing it for cities. We're doing it for companies. A few of them are insured. If they're self-insured, it's about the easiest thing in the world if you can get them to talk to you.
Yeah. The
that's
definitely so.
I believe that's a huge part that can come forward for everybody, because once we're in there, we're so booked right now at places that, you know, we're in with Tempur-Pedic, and they're starting to look across the country with some of the stuff we're doing. And we can't keep up. I mean, they love it. They just keep sending more and more people to us, which is becoming a bigger problem. But it's a good problem to have. But we went from about a day and a half up there a week to we're up there about 11 hours a day, 4 days a week now.
Yeah.
And we're doing the same with city contracts. So I honestly believe that, you know, as much as we look on the post side, the preventative side is probably there as much as anything. We're even starting to do it with small businesses now, just offering a couple sessions a week, like it's an internal insurance setup for them. So the business can buy into, you know, 2 sessions a week and send anybody they want that's starting to have any problem. Now, if they have a true medical problem, we have orthopedic guys or PTs that we send them straight to. So, you know, outside of the 1 or 2 PTs that don't like what we're doing, I don't know who's turning us in every 3 or 4 years, but it could be the same person.
Let me address that to everyone. We've had probably 3 of our MESs that have been actually investigated by the Attorney General's office. So the investigation starts with the local, or the state or provincial physical therapy board, and then they escalated to the Attorney General's office. And we've had this happen a couple of times. And with that, every situation that we've had an MES that's been investigated, they have been exonerated. And it really boils down to, there is a local therapist in the community that gets a bug in his or her soup about you doing exercise. That's why we've been so adamant over the years about making sure you don't say patient or treatment, and it's
Mike,
crystal clear and cut so that it's not a problem. Yes, sir.
can I ask something? In those situations, is it usually a situation where the client is not paying on their own? It's being paid by insurance or something?
No, either one. Sometimes the client is paying out of pocket. Sometimes the insurance is clear. And here's a fallacy. Now, I'm a physical therapist. I don't practice anymore. But in the PT community, the thought is, if there's any insurance reimbursement, it's ours, no one else's. And I was of that thought for a long period of time, until one day I realized we had a young man who was a patient, ACL reconstruction, good friend who was an orthopedist, reconstructed the knee. We saw him. The kid went back off to college in Minneapolis. The mother called and asked, hey, will you contact or talk to his trainer in Minneapolis? Talk to the trainer. It was a personal trainer. And at first I was a little bit upset, but then when I got off the phone, I realized we had discharged this young man. He was done. If the insurance carrier wanted to pay for something else, who am I to say they can't pay for it? Or who am I to say that the family can't pay for the services to keep this young man moving forward? And I think what's happening is the healthcare pie is getting smaller for everyone, and everyone is jostling for that pie. And the pie really, there's no pumpkin in the pie, it's dollars in the pie. So everybody has to be real concerned about the dollars. Our biggest concern is that a lot of these certifications that are popping up, and we've run into problems with them, telling fitness professionals things to do that are completely unethical and not appropriate, or giving them titles that they're putting themselves in harm's way, but they're not doing anything illegal. They're just following the wrong guidelines. I'll give you an example. We had a young lady in New York State. She even called me about this. There was a group out there offering something like a postural therapist or something like that. I don't know what it was. And they awarded her the certification. She called and asked, should she use the title? I told her, no, do not use that title. That's going to get you in trouble. Just because you're going to piss somebody off, and you don't need to be a therapist, be a medical exercise specialist. Well, she used the title on her card. One of her clients happened to be a patient of the person that was the president of the board of therapy examiners in the state. which meant it got escalated. The investigator came out, $8,000 later, she was exonerated and they told her to stop using the name, but the organization that she got the certification from never gave her any support. And I think it's the trainers, they want to be more, they want to do more. And it's like, everybody just stay in your lane. Now, I've known Stan long enough to know, and I know his background, that I know you guys aren't doing anything. I know you're being squeaky clean, but you'll get a therapist that gets pissed off because, hey, you're doing something that we should do. And what they're really saying is, it's something we should get paid for, so you shouldn't do it. That's going to be a bigger issue down the road as the rehab dollar shrinks more and more. And it's going to become a bigger issue. And I don't think there's any way we're going to get around it other than having squeaky clean practices. So eventually when that investigator or the attorney general comes in, they just simply look at your stuff and walk away. We've had 3 of those thus far, where the attorney general investigator went in and looked at it and called and said, there's nothing wrong here. The therapist is just pissed off. So that's something we're going to have to get used to moving forward, both here in the United States and in Canada and around the world. It's just one of those things.
And
We
I
just have to
think,
make sure we're squeaky clean. I'm sorry?
Yeah, I think some of the problem is, like, we're pretty sure this time it was somebody that came and saw us, and they went and talked to somebody and they said, yeah, I was seeing my physical therapist.
Exactly.
And,
Exactly.
I have athletic trainers working for me. I have exercise phys. We have, the MES is with them. And I've sent them pictures of our nameplates and our business cards and our brochures. And I'm like, if you can find one place that we ever say, we're physical therapists, we're not.
Yeah.
And you try to explain to them that, we're pretty happy with who we are.
Mhm.
We don't have to be a physical therapist. We're pretty happy with what we're doing, but we think this time that's what happened. The other times, I don't know.
Yeah. And I think this is where, as when you're bringing clients in, and I know, Stan, I've been into this facility enough to know that there was nothing that was inappropriately done. But on you guys end, for everyone watching, even the recordings of this, make sure that in your paperwork, initially when the clients come in, that there is a disclaimer there that says we're not providing any aspect of rehab services or anything along those lines. This is all exercise based. And yes, we have a referral from your physician, and make sure that the referral does not make any reference to physical therapy or physiotherapy or any treatment, because by law, that now has to be fulfilled by a licensed physical therapist, and that will get you in trouble too. So we need to be mindful of that. As we move into this future, which is going to get bigger and bigger, there are a lot of organizations out there now that are certifying people in this medical fitness realm that are, you guys should hear some of the phone calls we get. For a period of time, our phone calls were, I can take this and be a physical therapist now. No. One of our competitors, literally, and I don't say that they did this, but for a period of time, the phone was ringing off the hook that you can get insurance reimbursement, you could be a therapist by taking this course. And we had similar names. So I think that's out there. We do need to be mindful of the way we cross the T's and dot the I's, and even, Stan, as you said, making sure that we explain to clients. And even with that, folks, I can tell you, when I worked in University Hospital as a therapist wearing a lab coat, there were many patients that referred to me as their doctor. I'm like, no, ma'am, I'm not your doctor. I'm your therapist. They just get confused. So something we need to think of. So moving forward, the future of medical exercise training. Rosa, your thoughts, the future, medical exercise training. What do you think?
Just to, it's really interesting listening to what's happening down in the States. I know that in Canada, provinces vary, and with the future, I think that gaining recognition here is really important. We definitely need to be working as a team, which I think has worked really well for me. We have WorkSafe BC, and we have occupational therapists, and we have physiotherapists, and we work together as a team, and that's what my clients really like, is that we can get referrals and correspond and it's great because we can go on an easy quick text just to confirm an exercise that they've suggested that it may be different for me. So I really believe that here in BC, it's not that easy with the insurance companies.
Yeah.
They do pay us through an occupational therapist and through Work BC, but it's pretty difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I'll say this about the insurance reimbursement thing, and I know I'll get a number of different opinions on this, but the insurance reimbursement component of this is coming. It's coming within the next 2 or 3 years, at least here in the United States. And I know there has been some in Canada over the years. And I know many of you say, hey, I don't want to deal with the insurance companies, but with COVID has changed everything. COVID exposed all of our limitations, but COVID also made us kind of say, hey, there's some things we need to do here. We're seeing a growing interest in insurance companies paying for medical exercise training. And they're coming to trainers saying, hey, we've got this individual, they've done with physical therapy, we're now going to refer them to you. So this hasn't been something the trainers have solicited. So I think this is something that we're definitely going to start to deal with on an ongoing basis, starting within the next couple of years, not now, within the next couple of years. And at some point, I think medical exercise services will be included to some degree in insurance coverage, which completely will change the ball game down the road.
For sure.
And there's no doubt about that, because our population, as Colonel Thrasher said, the baby boomers. Hey, I just turned 60 and, I still want to hit the golf ball. I still want to do whatever I want to do. And at 65 with already an arthritic knee, it's going to need to be replaced. And here in the United States, we had significant cuts to Medicare for outpatient care, home care, and nursing home care that occurred right before COVID. Literally, it just kind of passed through and nobody paid attention. But now that COVID is, full blown, there's been nothing done to reverse that. So we're going to see more and more clients that are earlier in their rehabilitation process. They're more infirm than they were before. That was why we started our advanced medical exercise specialist workshop and residency. And with that, honestly, my biggest concern is I don't think the average fitness professional is ready for this, but they're going to take it on because let's be honest, if I can have 10 clients coming in the door and the insurance carrier is paying 50% of my charge, and that number of 10 clients now grows to 20 clients because the client only has to pay half and the insurance carrier pays half, we're looking down the road at something that could be a huge opportunity, or down the road at something that could be devastating to a profession where the majority of people are not ready to deal with these types of clients. So that's our biggest concern moving forward down the road. And it's something that, I'll be honest, it keeps me up at night because we started this thing and now it's growing so rapidly, what are we going to do? So Abby, let me ask you, the future of medical exercise training, what do you think?
Well, I wish we were further along. I believe that the reality that there are always these residual deficits after a person's been discharged from physical therapy. Somehow we need to be able to communicate to the medical community that we exist and the benefit of referring patients to us. I still find over the years I've built relationships with different doctors, and I've had was very thrilled last month when an endocrinologist called me and referred a patient to me because she had seen the positive outcomes of several diabetic patients that I work with. And so I told Dr. Mike this story last week, to be able to get the exposure and have the understanding of how we can benefit patients is what's going to launch this profession forward and accelerate our who we are and how we can make a difference and actually cut insurance costs, because we're less expensive than physical therapy in general. And so I believe that there is a great future, especially with the baby boomer population. It's about communication and getting the word out.
Well, let me ask the group this, because this is the next question. How do we get that recognition? And before you answer, let me go back to something Stan said earlier. Stan, I agree with you 100%. We need to be more on the front end of the management process rather than on the back end, you know, once the person has been injured. Because that front end process puts us in a completely different ballgame where we don't have a conflict with the therapist. And that being the case, how do we go about getting more recognition, not as individuals, but as a profession and a community of professionals? Because let's be honest, folks, physical therapy was in similar straits back in the 1950s and 60s. We were in the basements of the hospital. We were the guys and girls that gave you crutches and helped you walk, and that was it. But one day somebody decided, hey, I'm going to leave the hospital. I'm going to go out and open my own facility. And that in turn eventually led to insurance coverage, and that coverage led to, you know, therapists now reinvesting in education and in universities, and then the universities now eventually set up programs. What do we do as far as establishing that recognition with the medical community, where it doesn't just simply say, hey, I'm Tony, I'm at the Body House, the doctors recognize me, but now the medical exercise specialist is being recognized? Francois, what you think?
That's a great question, and I was just sending some messages to Ernie over there, and just one of my comments was the differences in Canada, because we have established colleges for physiotherapy, so that's well known and recognized. We also, in terms of kinesiology, we have provincial associations, but each provincial association has a little bit different of a mandate.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, in Ontario, where Ernie's at, I go through the Kinesiology Association there as a certified kinesiologist, I'm recognized in the healthcare kind of treatment plan, whereas here in Alberta, I'm not. So I can't get insurance reimbursement, for example, here in Alberta as a registered kinesiologist with the Kinesiology Association in Alberta, but I can in Ontario. So there's some disconnects in terms of the communication going on that way. So in terms of for us as medical exercise specialists, I think as we start to look at what's everybody doing and can we get a name out there, can we start to kind of highlight some stuff as well, and maybe through each other, kind of promoting each other in a way. I don't know. It's a tough one. I think that's where, as a collective, we have to come up with something, because there's right now a lot of different levels of organizational government, I'll say.
Francois,
yeah.
I was going to say, when I first started, this is like in 1993.
Mm-hmm.
I was part of a, I guess it would be like a family health team. It was a clinic that specialized in treating musicians, believe it or not, with arts-related injuries. And
yeah,
there
I
was
saw that one in Toronto.
Yeah, it's Dr. Chong. It was it's Musicians Clinics of Canada. Yeah, so I started working with them in '93. So there was a multidisciplinary clinic.
Mm-hmm.
What I proposed to them, actually, this was before I even met Dr. Mike, that I was part of their team. So the doctor would be at the head. He would refer, to different services. One of them was when the discharge, they would, instead of being discharged to just go to the gym, they would be discharged to work with me for ongoing supervised exercise, post-rehab exercise. So in Ontario anyway, I'm not a kinesiologist, but I was for kinesiology, and also for my services, which were being covered when it was covered by insurance, it was usually with an auto, like a motor vehicle accident coverage.
Yeah, the MVA, yeah.
If you're part of the physiotherapy plan, so the physiotherapist can refer, can offload some services to you. It's the bill. If in terms of billing, the physiotherapist does the billing.
Yeah,
they collect the funds, and then you would bill the physiotherapist or whoever's doing that, collecting the funds for your services.
Mm-hmm. No, I understand that, because when I was doing when I did my MES in '95, I was still in Ottawa, and I actually hustled my services to chiropractors. And with motor vehicle,
Yeah,
they
that was
filled out the
before it was
treatment
with Bill
plan.
59 came around, right?
Yeah, so they covered my costs when they wrote up their treatment plan to
Right.
cover MES services.
Yeah. Now, the one thing I'll say here in the United States, that is not a concept that is acceptable here. To us, and please, I understand that what you're doing in Canada, and it's certainly legal there. Here in the United States, that would be classified as insurance fraud. There are restrictions that are far greater here. But also, I guess my concern with that is we've had a number of MESs that have approached me and said, hey, Dr. Mike, this doctor told me that I can come and work in his office and he or she will bill for it and I'll get a percentage of it. And I'm just going to be frank and honest here. Doctors are like lions on the Serengeti. They eat first, period, end of story. And with eating first, you're always going to get the lower portion. And here's where I stand on all of this. I'm trying to make sure we can grow a profession. I'm not necessarily worried about individuals, even though a profession is individuals. When we get into things like that, it hurts the profession because I can tell you at least a dozen stories this year of MESs who've gotten in situations like that, working for a chiropractor or a physician. They bill for it and they bill for it. And eventually, again, this is a United States situation. They bill for it, but eventually that insurance company is going to say, do you have a license number for a physical therapist? And we don't have a license number. The insurance carrier comes back and says, well, we did an audit. You don't have a therapist. We want our money back. And when that money is taken out, guess whose pocket that money comes out of? That MES's pocket, or the physician says, well, we can't pay anymore because we have to now deal with this deficit. It continually puts our MESs at a low point, and it's something that I tell them I don't think is ethical. There's a question mark if it's actually legal. And again, I understand in Canada it's a different situation. What I'd like to see is that our MESs at some point can be standalone dealing with the insurance industry, because eventually it's going to happen. We all might as well wrap our brains around it. It's going to happen eventually. And the degree of it depends on each individual MES in their facility. But when we start looking at this recognition, do we want the recognition as a result of services that were brought in and were used to bill for? Or do we want to be recognized as professionals that can provide a service that is essential to the client? Which one?
So, Dr. Mike, definitely the latter one is the one to be shooting for. And I think part of that too is with that, in my view in Canada, anyways, with the hierarchy, and granted it's different across the provinces for sure. But here in Alberta, it's very much, here's the medical system. It's doctor, PT, OT kind of thing. That's the recognized stuff in Alberta. And sometimes we get some kinesiology, and it really depends on who's who and what's your network in essence to some degree. But yeah, it's trying to push as best as possible to say, hey, no, I'm a medical exercise specialist. Here's what I know, and here's how we can help out.
One of the things we've thought about is the idea of establishing a network for our medical exercise specialists. Some of you are aware, some of you maybe not. We've actually developed an electronic medical record computer system with a company out of Montreal, and it's designed specifically for medical exercise training. So now you can document what you're doing with the client in a medical exercise environment. It's a company out of Montreal that was the first that developed EMR systems for physical therapy. And they've now designed one that we can use for medical exercise training. And with that, we feel like that'll be something that can connect all MESs in that the software won't connect where you can look at someone else's notes or what they've done, but it will allow us all to provide the same services the same way. And I hate to use this term, but we become McDonald's to some degree. And maybe that might be the thing that will establish a standard for everyone across the board. And then, of course, the data that we can get from something like that, because if Stan has worked with a client that has a total knee replacement, and then Ernie is working with the same client, and then Susie is working with the same client. Hey, Susie, now we can get data that now says, hey, a client with a total knee replacement was worked with was worked on by MES, not to take the place of physical therapy, but afterward, and we saw a 25% improvement in their Lisholm scale, which is a scale to look at knee function. That's our thought, but we realize it's a monumental task. But at some point, we have to start somewhere with gathering data that's specifically for us, about us, and now can be presented to the medical community. We plan on releasing that right after Thanksgiving, but there are a couple extra things we needed to do. And it's not the answer or anything like that, but we do need to look at where we're going as a profession down the road. Because I think all of you work hard to build relationships. Somebody's got a dog someplace. We all work hard to develop relationships, but we need to develop relationships across the board for every MES. And I certainly don't have the answer. That's why I'm asking you folks your answer, because you guys collectively have done this a lot longer than I have.
Hey, Mike, I think the answer is numbers. Just listening to what you're talking about. So, like for instance, working for one thing is when you talk about the McDonald's approach, like having very specific protocols for specific conditions. I think is a huge differentiator, I guess, from what we do versus, there's good personal trainers, but what they do. Just that today, I'm just thinking about, I met with a client and took them through a functional scale and have very specific numbers to show them. It was 8, now it's 12, now, that kind of thing. So collecting data and using specific protocols, which then each MES, of course, the art of it is, massaging things. Like the guy I'm working with, he was 430 pounds. He's 340 pounds now. He's not getting down on the floor and back up. So some of the things in the protocol, which require getting on the floor, I got to tweak it so he's standing. So, but having that protocol is very, very powerful as a positioning tool, I think. And then also having the functional skills, the things which you can show, not just, subjective change, but actually showing numbers and being able to present numbers like that, and in terms of how these things become predictable, taking somebody through a protocol, and then you can predict the outcome. So I think that's a big differentiator.
Yeah. And Ernie, I realize it's a numbers game. It really is a numbers game. When we look at the numbers for fitness, the numbers in fitness say, hey, there should be some changes. When we look at the numbers for medical exercise, those numbers are pretty low. But I guess I have to say this, and please forgive me. When I was in the Army, I was a special forces officer. We worked in teams of 12 at the most, whereas, if you're in a regular unit, you might have, 13, 14,000 men. I believe in more of the elites rather than the masses. And I have to be honest with what I've learned from you guys over the last 27 years. You've done great jobs. But Ernie, I agree with you. It's a numbers game. It really is a numbers game. And that's why I wanted to ask you guys this evening, what do we want to do as far as recognition, not just on an individual scale, which you guys have done. You ladies and gentlemen, have done that and done that very well. We need to start looking at the idea of how we get recognition for medical exercise specialists. Not to say you walk in the doctor's office, they're like, hey, we've been waiting for you, but at least there's some degree of recognition. And I don't think there's an answer, but with a roundtable discussion, we can just kind of bring it up. Anybody?
I think there is. I think Ernie hit something on the nose that really bugs me about therapy and different things. Protocols are great, and I think having protocols are certainly incredibly important in what we're doing. Mm-hmm. But being able to teach the art of the protocol is something that I think is being lost even in PT world today when you talk to the new PTs coming out.
Let's not have that conversation this evening. We might be here for hours, and I might have to pull out my flask and let you guys see me take a couple of drinks on that one.
So Stan, what you're saying is, so maybe the thing is we're talking about what we are and how do we promote what we are. It's probably just as important to promote what we aren't.
Yes,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we're not there.
There's an absolute art, and when you talk to people that understand it, it's smooth, and I think that's going to be part of it. Numbers are obviously the game, but I think it's still grassroots. I mean, we've gotten into orthopedic clinics because we've shown them what I could do, and now they're sending to 4 of my guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and then establishing, well, you're sending them because a lot of these guys are MES people. And that's why it's almost got to be grassroots. But the art of following a protocol and understanding an individual and knowing where they want to get as far as quality of life and moving forward is something that I think needs to be focused on in this, because I think it's already been there. And to me, it's becoming more vital year by year, because I believe other parts are losing it because they're getting so many people at a time. And, if you get, we do individuals here, so you get to look and see how, they're doing the exercise and if they're leaning one way or the other or doing something wrong. I think they're losing that in other aspects, and we can't do anything about what they're doing, but if we do it better with what they're losing, that's going to start to bring recognition.
Right. So now let me ask you this. We're talking about numbers here. How many of you would be open to the idea of taking interns into your facility? We would provide the education. They could go online and do the education. You guys provide the hands-on component of that. And please, we're not asking you for anything. I'm just throwing out an idea, because Stan, I think you're 100% correct. Medicine is an art form based on science. And that's what I was always taught as a student going through PT school. The science says this, but the art form says I look at everybody a little different, and I need a pinch of this exercise and a dash of that one. It's the art form that's important. But the art form only comes when we have a seasoned chef explaining to the younger chef or the less experienced chef how to do it. How many of you would be open to the idea of taking an intern? Without the idea, because I know in the fitness industry, I don't want to intern in here. They're going to learn everything I know, and then they're going to open up across the street, and then I'm done. What do you think about that?
We already do in some areas, not necessarily MES. So we would absolutely do it. We take interns from, East Tennessee State University.
Okay. Okay.
So we're pretty confident where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
If they open up across the street, I'm pretty confident they're not going to make it.
Okay.
And that's how I think that's how
what I want to hear. Anybody else interested in taking an intern? And I'm not asking for us. We're here talking about moving forward. Interns. Anybody think
I
about
definitely would be interested in doing that, because I'm also 61 years old, and I would just.
And you look marvelous, my dear.
Fitness. It's all about that. But I really would hate to see in this small community. I'm only from a very small community. There's only 4,200 people here.
Mm-hmm.
It's a mining community. And
Where are you, Rosa? What town?
Sparwood?
Are you dry?
Yeah, we're dry right now. It's supposed to snow
Okay.
tomorrow.
Okay.
I actually lived in Fernie, and that's when I got started. I've been in the fitness industry since 1978, and I've been right out of school right into just a track of this the medical exercise specialist field for me. And I've told Dr. Jones this too. I don't know where I would have been if I would have gone the route of a personal trainer, because I find that personal training, you just don't have enough knowledge. There's never a client that walks in that hasn't got an issue of some sort. And I really feel that, they need more education than just personal training.
Yeah. And Rosa, I'll address that. I feel like we're at a dangerous crossroads right now, because the average fitness professional with reading something on the internet now feels that they are competent, and then they have the confidence to work with clients. And we're getting some horror stories. And actually, that's how I got into this. We had a couple of horror stories with patients that we referred out to trainers that end up being mangled. And, those are isolated incidents.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this push that the fitness industry has toward medical fitness, and I don't really care for the term, I prefer medical exercise, is going to end up causing maybe more problems, because these trainers are going to work with things that they are not trained for. And as all of you know, with a medically based client, when they start going downhill, they go downhill fast.
Mhm.
and it becomes a bad situation. Yes, Ernie.
I sat in an interview with my wife has MS. Just Mike knows that, Tony knows that, and it's progressing pretty good. She uses a walker now, and that. So she came to join the gym with me that I was going to. Beautiful laid out gym, lots of room, and figured maybe she could do the circuit of machines. I just was going to say, sitting in the interview that the trainer had with my wife who has MS, who's clearly there to improve her function. I mean, she talked about fitting into, getting rid of the New Year's calorie or the holiday calories and fitting into a dress. And I was just sitting there going, "Oh my God!"
Oh.
Like I didn't like. She's a good trainer. I've seen her in the gym. She's a
Hey,
decent
Ernie,
trainer.
you know what? I don't even
She
go
had-
to a health club anymore. I don't go to health clubs. I just
By the way, I love going to the gym. I'm a gym guy. But
okay.
but just
I can't go in them anymore.
Me
sitting
neither.
sitting there and listening to that interview was, what are your goals? I'm thinking, what the fuck do you think your goals are? Like it was eye opening, and it made me.
Now,
but
folks, let me say this. I think you're in a group with kindred spirits here after that one was said, don't you? It's like, yeah.
However, can I say something, Michael? But I was thinking, listening to, I thought what Stan was saying was very interesting about working pre, because what I was going to say is most of the people that I see are post. So I was telling Mike when I sent you that list of people I worked with recently, gentleman who had a hip replacement in the summer, I'm following the protocol, the total hip replacement, and all that stuff. He couldn't care less about the numbers that he's a high level, a former high level ski instructor. He just wants to get back to skiing. So that's where the blending of, the medical exercise, but you still have to have your personal training, like how to get that functional outcome versus just showing them with numbers, in the flexibility, the strength, or whatever. You know what I mean?
You know what?
And to
Medical
me, that's
exercise, when you put it together, I think it's a spectrum. It
Yeah,
goes
yeah,
from
yeah.
post rehab, the client right after the condition or the onset of the condition or the surgery, after PT is done, then that period of time where they're making progress. And then eventually we have to think about being able to step them down back to personal training because they just need that ongoing exercise. And I think now with the baby boomers, as Colonel Thrasher mentioned earlier, we do have to now look at that functional maintenance aspect where we just are keeping them functional down the road.
So Stan is talking about this pre. For me, most of my clients, almost all, are that what you're talking about. They're it's managing, like one of my clients skied at Whistler this past week in BC. She was managing knee pain this summer and rotator cuff. So we're working on a pre-season ski program, but also blending in stuff for an impingement in her shoulder and her knee.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So the point is to get her back to get her skiing.
Yeah. Now I think Stan's point is he's working in industrial settings.
Right. No, I get it. Yeah.
So, and you know what? I'm glad that Stan is here because we now need to start looking at that broad spectrum of medical exercise training. And if you don't mind, folks, let me shift gears for just a second and introduce a young lady who just joined us, Susie Dudkey. Now, I met this young lady in Chicago. She came up to me at the break in Chicago and said, I'm going to be a medical exercise specialist. And I think 2 or 3 weeks later, she called me. She had opened a facility in Lake Bluff, Illinois. And I think 2 or 3 months later, we came back to do a course in Chicago, and she hosted the course. And she suddenly had this studio. And then one day I'm in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, teaching a class. I think that's the class where I met you, Rosa. She calls me one afternoon, and we're talking, and she says, she's thinking about adding a PT component. So I guess 2 or 3 months later, she now has a separate, but in the same building, physical therapy clinic that actually she has 2 physical therapists in. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I never thought that we could see this. So let me introduce you guys. I know many of you haven't met her. This is Susie Dudkey. Susie, when did you take the course? It was 1995.
I believe May of 1995.
Yeah, 95. And I wanted to introduce you guys to Susie because she's done an incredible amount, as have all of you. So please, I'm not taking anything away from anyone else. But I know, Susie, you've had actual therapists in the facility with you.
Yes.
And I know, do you still have the therapist or have you gotten rid of the therapist?
Well, I don't right now, but I'll back it up a little bit. So I brought that in because in 1995, it was really hard to get insurance coverage for what we do. I was not having good luck with that. And the physical therapist was the way to just have that flow right along. And I brought a physical therapist in within the first year, and it's all about marketing. I'm going to say marketing, but it's really teaching what we do. It's all about doing that with all of your energy and all of your passion to build the numbers into the business structure you're building. And so for 21 years, I have had physical therapists on staff.
Wow.
And I have had our medical program and our wellness program. So the medical is all insurance reimbursement, and I'm in the Medicare network, and I was in every insurance network that you can think of, even Multiplan, which has about 300 companies. But I dropped United Healthcare because they make you beg every 2 sessions to treat your patient as you should be treating them. And I was paying out of my pocket to keep treating these people. And I did that for years until I finally said, no, they're all going to come into our wellness program pricing instead. So I don't take United Healthcare anymore. They're just the bottom of the gutter. Aetna is not that much better anymore, but and you start to learn all this. And I never knew how much I would learn about the insurance industry. You become a specialist just by needing to, but it's worth it in a way. So fast forward 4 years ago in Chicago, I don't know if this is the scenario where all of you live, and I think people are from all different parts of the country who are on here tonight. We have had a situation that's been developing over about the past 10 years of corporations buying out almost all of the physician practices, no matter what kind of physician you are. And as this happened, physicians who loved my practice, because we guarantee everybody a private session in a fully equipped room. The only place where 2 people might be together is with the warm-up equipment. Then we take them to a fully equipped room. It's always confidential communication. They get undivided attention from the clinician who's working with them. And the doctors love it. We see great results, and I hire people with really good backgrounds. So, and results is really what gets the physician to keep referring to you. It is about results. So, and feedback from their patients. So fast forward to 4 years ago, and physicians who loved my practice, I wasn't hearing from them anymore. And I renewed my initiative to meet with them and take them lunch or breakfast. I've done a lot of that for them to get to know my staff and myself and what we do. And, but the doors were actually closing on that because the corporations didn't want their physicians spending time talking to the drug companies or talking to anybody who wanted to market them. They would set up seminars with the drug companies and whatever for their physicians to learn about the new medications on the market. But I got in with a couple. Well, I got in with a few. 2 of them chose on their own to tell me what their contract was made of because they wanted me to survive. And they both independently literally said to me, if you're going to survive with your clinic, you need to know what our contract is comprised of. And basically, they were admitting they were handcuffed to the corporation that bought them. They did not have the freedom to refer to my private practice anymore. So after a couple years of the numbers from the physicians lower, physical therapists are quite expensive on the pay scale range. Reimbursements were going lower. I was putting the same energy into my business, but my employees were making a bit more than I was. And after a few years of this, I said, okay, I throw in the towel, we're going to be all self-pay. So at the point of that, I had one physical therapist on staff. Her husband needed to move to Florida. I loved her. She was great. Everybody loved her. But it was a good time to cut the cord. It wasn't hurting anybody. And everybody who comes to us now is in our wellness program pricing. And I explain that we do subacute through getting a client back to anything they left because of their ache or pain injury or lack of range of motion. We also do pure wellness, people who want our background to do a proper evaluation, build the proper program for what their body needs in the proper way. But I don't have a physical therapist on staff now, and I'm saving money with that. I have a master's degree, 30-year experience kinesiologist, and a part-time personal trainer. He isn't equipped to further the type of people we see, but if we teach him what needs to be done in a session, like if we just need that help in the schedule or we're going to go out of town, he does it perfectly. But he doesn't have the background that we have as MESs or a physical therapist has to know how to really properly further somebody. And that's what someone was talking about here, I think, with, there's multiple issues going on, and it's the art of knowing where to go next with what you're seeing. What's the right level for right now? So I built a very successful practice. And yes, I got a big hit with COVID. We were shuttered here more than once, and I tried to see some of my clients on FaceTime. It was okay, but you can't do the same thing. We didn't have any weight resistance. It wasn't satisfying at all to me. We're back open and actually rebuilding. And I'm going through the different steps that I did to rebuild in the first, from the first time, but with a good business reputation and not having a lot of face-to-face networking because of fear of contagion still. So I'm not sure, did I fill in what?
Oh yeah, you filled in everything, which actually, Susie, it was a perfect segue because you now are talking about rebuilding. What is everyone doing for rebuilding? We talked about the idea of recognition from the medical community, and we're all saying that numbers are the big thing. What about rebuilding your practices? All of us have taken a hit, everybody's taken a hit. What is the next thing as far as rebuilding at this point? Anybody? How are you going to rebuild? How are you going to get back? Now, some of you may be back to where you were. How do you rebuild at this point?
I'm definitely not back to where I was.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking into January to start having some more group sessions.
Okay.
And I did cut back to 3 days a week and basically compiled all my clients into longer days, just to cut back on the days that I was in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm looking forward to the future of hoping that, the groups will help.
Okay. Anybody else? Tony, what you looking at as far as rebuilding, man?
I'm going out to medical offices and establishing new relationships. So I actually already established one with a new, it's an aesthetics clinic that just got opened here on Staten Island. And it's primarily, as it says, aesthetics. But my wife actually does event planning, and she is a member of the women-owned business organization.
Mm-hmm.
And she's the one who facilitated that. So we just had a meeting just recently, and they want me to be part of their weight loss program.
Mm-hmm.
But when I started talking about the other services that I provide under the medical exercise specialist umbrella, they got really excited because they were thinking that they were getting a personal trainer. But then when they found out that there's so many different things that I could address, they want to integrate me as part of their package, which was pretty super. So I already have, I think one of the things that you had recommended some years ago about doing the prescription pad and doing the actual presentation folder. I have a whole bunch of them, which I kind of set to the side, especially over the last year and a half. And I'm re-examining that because that's going to be my ability to walk in and start giving this presentation to be able to say, this is the services that I provide. And we're really symbiotic, especially now because I'm dealing a great deal with chronic inflammation. That's been like my biggest linchpin over the last year. And even setting up a virtual coaching program for people who are dealing with chronic inflammation. And that has been very successful as well. And that's really what's encouraging me to be able to go out and create this presentation to these medical offices and to start establishing those relationships, which is kind of what Stan was saying would be the grassroots part, because none of these people that I'm presenting to know anything about medical exercise. I'm presenting it to them for the first time. And I think if we collectively start doing that, that we can start to create a groundswell of recognition for the profession.
Right.
And I think you're exactly right on target with having a presentation folder. I do. It's got a cover. It tells our quality and what stands out, and that many people come to us who haven't healed in other settings, and they do with us. And I have a prescription pad, and the back of it has our contact information and a map, of how to get to us. I think all of that just pumps up how professional we are with what we do. And if we don't show that at the outset, it's harder for somebody to understand. So I think that's spot on that you do that. I think it's very important.
Yeah. And you know what, Tony, and also to address Susie's point, that I've had conversations with all of you over the last couple of weeks, or last 3 or 4 weeks. And it's interesting, across the board, the one point that has been made is the social media and all that kind of stuff went out the window during COVID. It was now, we got to get back to basics. Do any of you remember, it was a commercial that came on years ago. It was either for United or for Delta. And it's a camera is looking at an employee meeting. And the owner of the business comes in and says, they've lost contracts to various competitors. And it's just because they automated and they aren't spending time with customers anymore. And he comes in and he starts passing out airline tickets, which means this is probably at least 10 years ago. And I guess they lost one big contract, and he's giving everybody airline tickets, and they lost this one big contract. And he says, I need to go back and visit an old friend, to go back and reestablish that relationship, that grassroots relationship. So it's interesting talking to all of you and others over the last few weeks. It seems that the grassroots relationships are coming back. Let's sit down and let's talk to these doctors again. And it's interesting, you would think the opposite because of COVID, but COVID kind of leveled the playing field for everybody. And now we can get back in there, and those old friends, we get a chance to go back to, and that old style presentation still makes a difference because that clinician sees the difference between everyone else. Is anyone else now knocking on doors and renewing or developing new relationships that are based on the old school way of doing things? Let's just knock on the door and do a presentation. Here's what we do. I know with COVID is rough. Anybody else doing things like that?
Yeah, I'm doing that myself, and I'm actually doing it on a local front in terms of where my clinic is. And I targeted, for example, just earlier this week, I went to a family medicine clinic. I walk in, kind of dropped off some of my info, kind of chatted with the person and said, hey, I'll follow up with you next week or 10 days. And then near my clinic, there's also a pharmacy. They're very holistic based approach as well. So, with the internet, I looked up who the heck is the owner. So I'm going to do a package specifically for the owner. And then, so just targeting like within the 10K radius. And then there's a medical supply store. So kind of all that stuff in my local neighborhood, for sure.
Right. Does it make all of you feel kind of back to square one again, that you now got to go out there and knock on doors again?
Yes.
And I'm too old to walk and knock on doors. It just
it's doing it all over again. It does take a lot of energy. It takes a lot of passion. And I think as MESs, we've got that. But starting it in a way, it is starting with how we built it. Yes. So, I don't know if anybody else thinks like, oh, again, but it's what it takes, It's what it takes.
Well,
go ahead, Tony. I'm sorry.
What's interesting though is that I have a banking and sales background. What I was doing simultaneously as I was transitioning into training. And one of the things that as bankers, I was a street bankers to go out and establish relationships and you know, and I remember what we learned was you can go out to individual businesses to establish relationships, or you can court CPAs. And why do you court CPAs? It's a difference between fishing with a pole and fishing with a net, because you get one CPA and you get their portfolio, preferably of hundreds of businesses, as compared to landing one business. And so from there, it becomes a matter of asking yourself the question, who are our potential clients, and who do our potential clients know, trust, and do business with, and court them? Because really, you get one of those relationships and it's transformative to your business.
Oh,
It's
sure.
it's an investment. So you find a physician who really loves what you do, and that one connection that's nurtured well ends up a multi-year investment for your business.
Absolutely.
Right. Now, one thing I'll share, and some of you may have done this already, we're finding that concierge-based medical practices are prime areas for medical exercise specialists that we develop relationships with, prime areas. And when you think about it, the preventive medicine, the concierge-based practice, it really is fertile ground for medical exercise specialists to provide either services on site or, so because remember, the concierge-based practice doesn't do any insurance billing. It's all, hey, I'm paying to have the right to be a patient here. And we find that that is a major area that I think will do well moving forward, as well as independent senior facilities, even though they've been hit hard by COVID and there's still massive restrictions there. We're finding many of our MESs that are dealing with independent living, senior living communities, you know, where people are living on their own, they're not in a nursing home. Those have become very important areas. Now, of course, they dropped off significantly during COVID, but as they're starting to come back, those are opportunities that we're seeing for our MESs.
Can I interject one other idea there?
Sure,
There
please.
are also some nurses choose to be, for their profession, case managers for insurance companies. And many insurance companies have these options that are not just the normal go for your health and file it with insurance. And who we are as an MES is valuable to them. It's a little less costly. And you get cases that are very interesting and good, you know, brain food for us, which I happen to love. And I think probably we all do. And so if you can do some search for the nurse case managers for any type, could be for a senior type organization or the Blue Cross Blue Shield. I have one with Blue Cross Blue Shield, and they don't cut my reimbursement at all. I mean, I bill them and they pay me exactly what I bill them. I do reports for free, you know, which is fine. But these are all ways that another tributary for finding a long-term investment.
We are in 4 different assisted living facilities.
Oh, wow.
We do a balance class is what we do.
Stan, I think we all need to pack up and move to Tennessee and work for you, man. You know, the way it sounds. You know?
I'm not saying I'm making any money.
Everything. You're going to be the governor down there before we know it, man.
Well, what we've done is we've got a balance class here. So we decided to move it out to those places because we were trying to get them to actually, you know, ship them over here, like bus them, and that wasn't going to work. So we go over and do a balance class once or twice a week at these places. The nice thing is, at the same time, the guy that goes over there ends up with 1 or 2 or 3 individual sessions at those places because somebody says, well, will you see my dad, you know, because he needs a little bit of help here. And so we found that to be a nice adjunct to what we're doing. And they did kick us out a little bit longer than everybody else, but they've come back, and we've even got a couple of them will say, you know, when you can't do it, we'll pay for a video, so, you know, for you to make it, and you know, they pay us so much per month to use it. So
that's cool.
I think the other part that we've got, I'm against insurance still, and until I feel like it's too much work. But what we did is we did get on all the HSA plans. So health savings accounts. So we can, you know, they can come in and use their health savings accounts with us, which is for a lot of people, they have high deductibles anyway, so it's basically like using their insurance.
Hmm.
At least it's tax deductible.
Pre-tax, yeah,
Yeah.
pre-tax
Let,
money.
let me share a situation that we had that occurred a few years ago with one of the largest insurance carriers in the nation. They approached us a few years ago through one of our MESs here in Texas, and they were inundated with individuals with hypertension, diabetes, low back pain, and arthritis, utilizing the ER as a primary care tool, which, as you know, an ER visit, we're talking about anywhere from $29 to as many as $2,300 on average here in Texas. Well, they contacted one of our MESs, who actually is one of our teachers, and they contacted him through his website because they looked at this idea of exercise. Could exercise possibly help manage these 4 conditions better? Well, they sat down and they specifically wanted the protocol. And this insurance carrier, through one of their, I guess, not physician-owned, but a relationship they had with a group of physicians, started referring people on an ongoing basis to this MES who worked in a PT clinic. And they were paying $85 per session, no questions asked, just invoice the insurance company, not with the normal, standard insurance billing, but just sending an invoice. It went great, but the physical therapist that owned the facility eventually got greedy and said, hey, I want to bill each of these clients for a physical therapy session at $140. And of course, the insurance carrier said no. The physicians that were referring to clients, they adhere to our criteria, and they adhere to it very well. And I just wanted to address the idea of the billing. In this situation, the insurance carrier came to us. We put together a pilot for them. There was no issue of haggling over bills. It was, client came in the door, you're going to get your check within the next, week to 10 days, which is ideal with an insurance carrier. But it worked. And our thought is they basically joined in on the idea of a protocol. They knew what they were getting, and they just specifically wanted exercise and nothing else. These clients did not have any acute issues. They were at the tail end of the subacute stage and more chronic, but they were going back and forth to the ER for flare-ups. Let me ask the group, if there was a situation like that presented itself, dealing with an insurance carrier where there's no hassle, you're just going to provide the service and you're going to get reimbursed, would that be something that group members would be open to the idea of working in? Client comes in the door, they've got the referral, we don't have to haggle, all that other stuff is like, here's what you're going to get, here's how it works, here's the reimbursement, and it works.
It doesn't sound like there's any downside. That sounds like just a private client, right?
Well, but I won't say a private clinic, but it's a
not clinic, a private client.
Private client that's being the insurance carrier is reimbursing for. Yeah.
No, but I mean, it sounds just like somebody who comes in and
hires
and pays you. So
yeah, except Big Brother is out there paying for it. Yeah.
So what's the downside there?
There's no downside. and I'll be honest with you, we looked for a downside, and we ran I think it was a 3-month pilot program. It worked like clockwork. The only problem was this MES was seeing these clients in a physical therapy clinic, and the physical therapist got greedy. That's what it was. I had to actually drive to Austin to talk to the therapist, because I'm like, look, dude, this is a great situation. And the other thing was, he kind of said that he owned the protocols, which, I just blew my top on, and we had to have a counseling session, for lack of a better phrase. The old Ranger in me came out when I went down and talked to this guy. But it just showed me the insurance carriers know what they want. They know what they want if you will provide it for them. And our thought is, if they came to us, that means there are others that are looking for it. If we went to them and said, here's our package, here's what you're going to get, here's how long it's going to last, and here's what we're predicting is the outcome, and we'll play fair with you if you play fair with us, that's what we look at least I look at, not us. I look at it as utopia. And I think there's the possibility of it because right now, our healthcare systems on both sides of the border are in shambles, and it's worse than we think because COVID has really dealt some significant blows to us. And I just bring that up just as something to throw out to say the possibilities are there with this. We've had some communication with insurance carriers over the last couple of years that are looking for this. And again, it goes back to Ernie's point. We just don't have the numbers because as an insurance carrier, if I'm going to provide something, I have to provide it to all enrolled members, not just to specific enrolled members. That's where the problem comes in. So Stan, I agree with you 100%. I don't want to go through the hassle. I was a therapist in private practice for 14 years. My life rose and sat on the insurance company, but I think there might be a better way if we can say, here's what you're going to get. Those are the French fries. It's from our brand, and you're going to get these every place. But
I would agree with you 100% on that. You know, I was in physical therapy clinics for 9 years, and
yeah,
and it was just such a huge hassle to get paid, and how much they got paid they never knew, and it was a struggle. So, but if we could provide something like that, you know, especially if you could have some kind of outcome study of exactly what you were talking about, they're not going back to their doctor, they're not going back to the ER. You know, or you've cut it by 50%, anything like that, because that's kind of what we do in our business practice is, you know, they're not going out to the doctors, you're not getting recordables, that kind of stuff. So it's the same exact thing. I think they'll buy it if we can come up with the numbers and start to show them some things like that.
Yeah. And our goal moving forward, we wanted to do this starting back in 2021, but of course, COVID hit, and you know, it's lasted longer than we anticipated. Because we wanted to have the EMR much sooner, but with the border shutting down and on top of that thing shutting down, it kind of pushed us back for quite a period of time. And our feeling is if we can somehow or another standardize it and then report it and then aggregate the data, maybe that might be something that will be helpful for us down the road. But another question, I think I'm going to say this and I may end up getting some pushback, but I'm going to bet that most people that are listening in, and I know we have a couple of that aren't, are probably in their mid to late 40s or older. Is that correct? Kind of, sort of, maybe?
Or on this Zoom,
Yes.
this group.
Yeah.
I'm the grandma.
Okay.
I'm 70.
Oh, wow. Susie, I didn't know you were 70. Well, I turned 60.
In fact, I'm thinking that thing of maybe selling my clinic in 2 years. So I have more time to do other
We're not
things.
going to let that happen, you know, and I'm not going to let any of you retire because as long as I'm here doing it, you guys are going to do it too. But here's my question to you. And this is really more for those that are moving into the profession. What's your next step in your career? Now, I know all of us are looking at, you know, hey, I want to go off and sit on the beach forever. What's the next step in your career? What's the next thing that you want to do? Because I think all of us have a passion. We want to leave this better than we found it. What's the next step? And Rosa, I'm going to ask you because you started this a little while ago talking about what you want to do next. What's the next step for you career-wise as a medical exercise specialist?
You know, it's taken a really long time to be recognized in these small communities. And I just feel that if I can keep going, like Susie said, for a couple more years, you know, and I don't think here, we were talking about the recognition and, you know, creating the packages and in a small community, just knowing faces and, you know, getting involved, I think is really important. And I think that has to be redone because of COVID. We've kind of lost that. And I think, so for me, the next step, it's interesting because just last week I had a little bit of a confrontation with a physiotherapist and actually sent her my credentials. And I also sent her something that I feel is really important is what is required to relicense. And I think that's important too, because there are so many other personal trainers and whatever that they don't need to recertify, they just carry on. So, you know, I think that that's an important aspect of being an MES is the recertification requirements. And for me in the future, I would really love to mentor someone and have them working in this studio. It's difficult to say just because of the population here.
Okay. Okay.
I come from a small community too, and finding good people is very hard. Very hard. Most people, if they want to be working, they are working, and that's my biggest problem is finding the personnel.
Yes, Susie, that's so true. You know, I had a girl come out of kinesiology, and she came in and said, "Now what? You know, can you help me out here? I need to know how to do things." You know, they learn the education part, but the physical part of it, I think, is so important.
Well, and the way I got another employee was during COVID when nobody was working. A lot of people were rethinking whether they wanted to go back to where they were. And I thought, I'm going to take advantage of this and put the networking feeler out and found somebody really good. If I had to do that right now, I'd have trouble finding somebody.
Okay. Ernie, next step with your career. What do you think?
It's been such an interesting 2 years. I have never been more profitable by multiples. So when we talk about the struggles during COVID, this has been literally the greatest period of my professional life I've ever had. I feel like, although I'm working with as many sessions as I've ever worked, I feel like I'm semi-retired because I'm in my home, you know, between clients. I can go water my tomatoes. I can go for a run. I can have a nap if I want, whatever.
Now, I've never heard anybody say they go water their tomatoes.
Water my tomatoes, man.
That must be a hell of a thing, Ernie. I water my tomatoes.
I can play my guitar over here. So it's been a really, and all kidding aside, I have never had a business this profitable. Like my gross is not as good or better than before, but literally all of my expenses are gone. So
You do that during COVID. Sorry for interjecting. How did you do that during COVID? During the
all of my clients are training with me through FaceTime. The ones, even my clients who were with me for years in person, all want to continue. You missed the beginning. I did a poll. So for 6 months, I had to pay rent on my facility without being able to see a single client ever for 6 months. So I built up my virtual business. Actually, you know what? Here, one thing I want to say is a distinction I came up with. I don't do virtual training. I provide home-based exercise for clients, and then I supervise it virtually. So I'm teaching people how to work out in their homes, and then I'm supervising it and updating your programs through virtual means.
Fantastic.
It's after 6 months, I ended my lease in my facility. I took a poll. Before I did that, I took a poll. I asked all my clients, you know, how do we want to continue? Do you want to come back? And it was 93% wanted to remain virtual. About 20% of the 93% said they'd like to meet on occasion. So maybe every couple of months, every 6 weeks, just meet so we can stay connected like that. So going forward, I can't imagine a scenario where I go back to having a physical location. My clients now, I have people that I see in British Columbia, Quebec, around Ontario, and different provinces. I have clients who work with me when they're now traveling for business. I'm training them from their hotel rooms in Pittsburgh or Florida. I've worked with people in Florida. So I would love to expand my reach geographically because my geographic limitations are gone.
Right.
How did you find the new clients during the pandemic shutdown?
I'm a columnist for a major newspaper in Canada, and it's a weekly, so it comes out literally every single week. So the majority of my clients come to me through the newspaper because they're readers who have been reading me for years now. I'm not having to sell anybody. They approach me to train with me.
They feel like they know you. And what is your column about?
It's called Fitness Solutions, and it's about managing medical conditions with exercise. So this week,
For all of you, especially the students, any students that are on the call, this is why I keep telling you guys to write in your blog, because Ernie just literally posts this stuff, and
So
he's got clients all over North America. Yeah.
I'm in the middle of a series right now. This is a book I hosted a dietitian who did a seminar or a webinar for my clients, and she referred me to the book The Diet Fix by Dr. Yanni Friedhof. I read the book. I was so blown away that I contacted him and I set up an interview with him. So I'm doing a 4-part series in my column. Essentially, it's a book report and interview about that book. So I would like to continue, Mike. It's a long answer to a quick question.
That's all right.
My next steps, I want to continue virtual. I want to refine the way that I'm doing it. The thing that I found I've really gotten good at is being very selective and very picky with who I work with.
Yeah.
So I am so insistent on staying in my scope.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's anybody that I feel it's not going to work, I'm referring them. So my referral network that rather than going out with I do have a package and I have referral pad. I have all that stuff. But rather than going out and connecting and setting up meetings where I'm trying to sell myself to a clinic or a doctor, when I'm approaching doctors now, it's about it's about referring to them.
Gotcha.
So I have a really, 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 another really busy, renowned orthopedic surgeon I work with who it's a year to get in to see him. If I refer one of my clients, I pick up the phone, I know the clinic owner, they're in there within a few weeks, within 3 weeks.
Okay.
So it's a really, really good, it's a really good thing that I can use. So if somebody comes to me, wants to work with me, they just don't have the range of motion. They're not ready for fitness. They need physio. They need medical care. Rather than just saying, go, I can't work with you. I refer them to somebody, usually to Dr. Rabinovich, surgeon. He works with them. They may be getting injections. They may go to physiotherapy, but they come out the other end back to me. It may be a little bit until I see them, but it's really, I'm feeding them way more than they're feeding me, but it gives me the opportunity to expand my reach to people outside my scope, that once they're in my scope, then they come to me.
Now, here's a question, and it's not to Ernie, but to the group.
Yeah.
Now, I know for me, owning the practices I owned, that was kind of the concept. It's like, hey, we'll refer out, but we're going to get it back 3, 4, 10-fold down the road. And you don't have to answer this question, but this is just something to think about. Why doesn't the fitness industry understand that? It seems like, and I'm not accusing you guys of it because you're no longer part of the fitness industry. It just seems like the industry is really just focused on getting the client in, managing the client, doing everything.
Small-minded.
Yeah.
Small-minded.
Yeah, and I find that's one of the biggest things in many instances for the younger MESs we come in to kind of break that mold and say, hey, refer out. It's not about holding on to the money or holding on to the client. It's about referring out. You'll get that back 3-fold down the road if you just refer out.
Mike, I even refer people to other MESs. You know, Susan, she's in Burlington. She's nearby. I forgot her last name now, but she's an MES. I've people who I don't feel are a match for me. It's just I interview them. It doesn't feel like a right fit. I'll refer them to other trainers or other MESs without any expectation of anything coming back. But I think it just establishes more of a professional, nature if you're willing to do that.
Yeah, I agree. Abby, question for you, Abby. What's next? What's next in your career? I know you just finished another training program and you're working now with cancer clients, if I'm not mistaken. What's next for you?
Well, I think it's really important to really figure out what your niche is, especially as a seasoned MES. I find my focus is on working with certain special populations. I have quite a few diabetics that I'm working with right now. And in that way, integrating with professionals, endocrinologists, and just made a connection with a nurse practitioner. Mm-hmm. And so I think just really trying to be the best at who you are with a certain subtype of individuals can also you have a niche that nobody else has that sets you apart from other medical exercise specialists or personnel trainers who work with people who may have injuries. Yes, am a cancer exercise specialist. I have been working with cancer patients over these years as a medical exercise specialist, but I felt like with the lockdown, it was time to up my skills and my knowledge and my credentials. So I'm starting to integrate with more of the cancer foundations in my area to attract more clients. So, yeah.
Okay. Stan, what's next, my man?
We've got a couple things that we're doing. I mean, obviously the post we're getting in with, we've got a couple orthopedic practices that are referring a whole lot more to us straight from and not going through the PTs, which is probably some of our issue we're having around here.
Kind of.
Which is
I
fine.
hope, Stan, you're not a hunter, are you?
I am not.
Okay, I was gonna say you better not go hunting this hunting season because you might not come home. They're gonna find
That's
you.
right.
Out.
Yeah. I think we've got a couple big irons in the fire with the preventative medical stuff that we're doing. Both, we've got a couple big ones with some big companies, and it's the savings they're seeing. So we're on the preventative side, and that side we're seeing growth of 20, 25, 30% a year, and it's significant for us, and huge in a couple aspects because we're in with a couple companies that have 15 and 20, 30 facilities across the country, and we're on the edge of becoming that for them, basically putting medical exercise training as a preventative setup. Now we do couple with ergonomics, which I think in that instance is vital.
Yeah, that's ideal. Yeah, very much ideal.
We're producing things that other people can't. We're producing leading analytics now, which is something that companies are dying for because mostly they get lagging, which is we had this injury in this area. And so, a year after it happens, they find out that, they got a bunch of shoulder issues on line 4. We can actually tell them that before they ever happen. So our preventative side is the part that's just exploding right now. The other part is just, and believe it or not, I've been doing this for 21 years and own the big facility for 15. Actually just getting to our membership and letting them know what we do, because about half of them know and half of them don't.
Yeah.
And I think that's another place for MES in the future. I mean, putting a small clinic that's where I started. I just put a small room in a fitness center and just started talking to their people that, I was allowed to talk to members, and you educate members. It's education. It's not sales.
Yeah,
as soon as you educate them on what to do and what they're missing, you're full, and so I think that's for us, it's preventative is our biggest one by far.
Okay.
I'm linking with an Anytime Fitness. Do you guys have that around the country? 24 hours. I'm linking with, it's almost across the street from me. And since getting back, I'm linking with them to do that type of a thing. Educational things within Anytime Fitness, and, agreements that we won't continue to personal train their people because they offer that, but same type thing. You get your, a feed that way.
We work with a couple fitness centers, because we're obviously one, so they don't like us working with them. But what we've actually done is say, we're not going to try to really recruit them very hard here, as long as when we're finishing up with them, you let us come into your facility and actually show them the whole program that we want them to do on their equipment that you have right there. So they're not doing it wrong. We got the right mechanics, how much they're doing and everything. And it's worked out pretty good with a couple facilities, The good news is sometimes we get those people because we take people off the street and they don't have to be members. So a lot of times if they come into the facility, half of them want to stay anyway.
Right.
But I think linking with these other facilities and saying, I'm going to bring them back in and show them what to do at your place usually puts them at ease that you're bringing them back.
Right. Okay, I got another question for the group. Let's go back 20 years ago when we all had hair and it was black and all that other stuff. Because I think I've known most of you at least 15 years now. What would you tell that young trainer who's transitioning into medical exercise? what would you tell them now? What would you tell them now? And I'm going to ask everybody, I'm going to ask you to hold it to no more than 2 minutes because I want to get everyone in to move to the next point. What would you tell that trainer who's just finishing the MES now? What would you tell them? Tony, I'm going to start with you. You got 2 minutes.
I would say get as much education after as possible. I would say, if you can, find another MES close by and get as much mentorship as possible, and start going out there and start doing it. Start doing it. Get as much hours, hands-on, eyes-on as you possibly can.
Okay. Francois, what would you tell them? What would you tell yourself 26 years ago when we were out in Apache Junction? What would you tell yourself then that you know now?
A little bit of the same is have an open mind.
Okay.
Because I know in some of our conversations, I think you mentioned to me, learn from other industries. And that's a big one. When I was at a lymphology conference in Rome a couple of years ago, because I'm a certified lymphatic therapist as well. And I'm going, wow, what these guys are doing what here in Europe? I'm going, how come we're not doing this back home? Right. So definitely learning from other clinics, other practitioners. So very similar, have a mentorship somewhere or get that connection for sure.
Okay. Susie, what would you tell yourself when you walked up to me in Chicago? I was at the, what was it? Merchant.
It was two balls of energy colliding, right?
Yeah.
I was so
that place.
impressed with yours.
Market. I can't remember the name of that place. I can see it.
Which
what would
place?
you tell yourself when you walked away from that course? What would you tell yourself now?
Well, if I could go back and just talk to myself, I would reaffirm to let my passion show, about love of my profession and what we can do for people. I tell people I'm in a feel-good profession because we not only get to know people well, but we see them feel better, and it's wonderful. Keep going forward. It's not always easy. It was Dr. Mike who said, when I had a big bump in the road a number of years ago, it's not over. This is a bump in the road and you'll have others. And he was so right. I would tell myself to understand that the business structure will change, and that's not a bad thing, but it's a creative good thing. And you need to ride with what you see working and go, let your energy go in that way. I think I would instruct somebody young not to start too big. You shouldn't start with a lot of financial debt. You should just expand when you're oozing out the seams of where you are. And then you'll always have an income for yourself and for equipment and things you need. I would also encourage somebody starting out to get out there in the community, speak for groups, go to any networking meeting you can find, write down notes on a business card when you get it, write a personalized letter to every single person you have talked to that they revealed something about yourself. Banks have money. They like to do health type things and everything for their employees. You'll probably even get paid speaking for a bank, but teach, always teach. I don't like calling it marketing because it's teaching. And then if you get your face out there, people start to see you as knowing what you're talking about and believing in you. So they remember you when they have a problem. They tell their tennis partner about you when they have a problem. You'll start seeing multiple generations of a family. So don't start too big. Get your face out there. Have the confidence. You've got a good background. You'll keep getting education and get your face out there, speaking for groups and doing follow-up. Follow-up is essential. Love your passion and love what you're doing. And understand that your business will go through changes. And that's part of the creativity of having a long-term business. It's a good thing.
Right. Abby, what would you tell Abby 27 years ago?
Susie, I think what you said caps it completely. Have your passion, educating the community is key to getting exposure and to just grow in increments. so that you can develop who you are and your style and your special brand, how your brand as a medical exercise specialist. So don't get discouraged. It's one client at a time, one wellness program at a time. And just believe in yourself and your ability that you have to help others.
Rosa, what would you tell yourself?
I think everything that everyone has said, first of all. Networking, I think, is really important as well. And just starting to work with different people, and that helps you to educate. You know, whenever, even now, I'm getting a new client in, you know, that just had a C-spine fusion. Okay, well, I need to revisit that and look at what I can help that client with. So I think educating along the way is really important, and have a small business plan that can easily be modified, you know, which we all went through with COVID. For sure.
We threw the business plan in the trash can and started with something different, didn't we?
So yeah, you know, make modifications to that as you need to and not give up.
Right. Ernie, what would you tell Ernie 26 years ago?
Well, I think the biggest mistake young trainers make is that they think that you have to have a unique, individualized, specific program for every single person for every single session. And I know I did too. I would write a new one for. So I would say that the thing that's going to differentiate you, if I'm talking to my younger self, is to don't be afraid of working with protocols where you have. So when you have a specific type of person, you're going to see the same people over and over and over. You have a set plan that everybody goes through the same thing. And as a young guy, you think that's like cheating. I used to think, yeah, I'm a personal trainer, I should develop a new routine every time. But it's not actually the case. And then like we talked about the art of it. The art of is massaging it to each person. So I would say my younger self, use protocols, believe in them, and have a specific way you work with a specific person for a specific condition.
Okay. Tony, I don't think I've asked you yet.
Yeah, you did, but I'm glad, because I wanted to add something. Get as many models as you can early on.
I got you. Stan, what would you tell yourself?
You know, a lot. What
besides hating Alabama, what would you tell yourself?
We do hate Alabama here, but and everybody should. That we'll start with that. I think it's important. You know, Tony said early on, education. I mean, you gotta know where your lines are. You know, stay inside your lines, and don't feel bad that you're inside your lines. Or you know, I think that's the biggest problem a lot of people have is they get worried that they don't know everything, so they start doing things they shouldn't be doing.
Yes, I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. Yes.
I think a lot of us come from you know, a training background or a personal training background. I think it's, you know, I came from more of a medical. I think it's imperative you understand how the medical community works, because you're not going to break in there if you don't understand how they work. And so get out there and figure out how doctors work, how PTs work, you know, what are they thinking? What are they wanting? All of that. I think that's imperative if you're going to break through everything. And the last is realize you're not near as smart as you think you are, and put people that are smarter around you. So go find a mentor and everywhere you can, from business to, you know, I have PT mentors, I have orthopedic guys, I have business mentors, and go talk to them and shut up and listen to them, because that's where you're going to gain your knowledge from people like that. It's kind of like anybody coming talking to one of you guys. That's what it's about. And they come and ask a few questions and then just sit there with their ears open and listen, because that's where you're going to make the gains.
Francois, have I asked you yet? My apologies if I have not.
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
All good.
And lastly, Colonel Thrasher, what would you tell your younger self? Besides, I want to be an Army officer instead of Air Force officer. What else would you tell yourself?
Never. I couldn't sleep on the ground, and I don't like critters. Okay. Air Force people, we're prima donnas. We have to stay in hotels. We don't do the ground. We don't do that stuff. If I had run into you probably earlier in my career, I don't know if I would have had an Air Force career.
Mhm.
I really don't. For those that don't know, I am a PT. I took Dr. Jones's course, and I decided to see how smart he really, really was. I took everything that I was doing, all my protocols, and because I had boiled everything down to the usually 3 or 4 exercises that I was going to do that were working every time. And I decided just to use his. I put it aside. The protocols work. Every single solitary one of them, they work. Identify your wheelhouse. Find out what you're good at. It's kind of like if you just stand. I like teaching, and I like the pre-op, post-op stuff. That's what I like. That's what I want to do. That's what I will do. And when you get something that is basically not for you, as I think whoever it was, Ernie's wheelhouse, Ernie's iPad here. Is that Ernie? Okay.
Yes.
Just don't if you got a network of somebody you can pass that person off to so that they can still get what they need, that's fine. But I would do that. Identify what it is that you absolutely love, that you're absolutely good at. Because then you can.
Uh-oh, we lost Angela there. Uh-oh. Hopefully we didn't lose her too long.
Frozen.
Uh-oh, she popped back in.
It's a cliffhanger.
Oh, she like, there she is. All right. Oh, she's back. It's like Netflix. You got to come back for the next episode, you know? We lost you there, Ange.
Yeah. If you had an orthopedic surgeon, I mean, that did knees and shoulders, and he wasn't good at spines, I wouldn't want him working on me.
Yeah.
I would hope he would send me to one of his buddies. But figure out what you're good at, because even if you specialize, you're still gonna draw in all those other people, because once they find out that you're really, really good at what you're doing, you will get asked that, well, can you help me with this, or can you help me with that? And if you can, do it. And if you don't feel comfortable with it, have no issues with letting it go. Grow in your wheelhouse, you know. So it's identify your wheelhouse, stay in your wheelhouse, grow in your wheelhouse, and just do the things that you love to do. And I think you'll enjoy this. Dr. Jones has laid it all out, and I was blown away. And I was shocked when he told me, one of the first questions I asked him after we talked about the program was how many physical therapists were in his programs. And he was like, maybe 1. And I was like, they're crazy. They're crazy. He's done all the work, and it's a really good program.
Yes, Dr. Mike has made a big difference in our lives. Definitely.
That.
Yeah, it was, you know what? And I say this, we were in the right place at the right time with a dumb idea that it just worked. That's
a great idea.
If someone told me in 2021 that I'd be doing this rather than seeing patients, I'd have told them they were completely crazy. No way.
You know what's the most amazing thing, I think, is that how the heck did we find you? Because we were talking about this once, 1996. So I've probably heard of you in 1994. Mm-hmm. No internet, where did we find? I don't even know how I.
Yeah,
it was a full page ad in the
magazine.
magazine.
Yeah, I ran
exactly.
magazine.
This is where I want to be. This is where I want to go next.
Yeah, I was certified by ACE because I went to university in the United States. So I did it there. So it must have been Idea Maggie. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, probably was. Yeah, that's probably
same here.
Yeah.
And the longest name, American Academy of Health, Fitness, and Rehabilitation Professionals.
We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't have a clue.
Somebody asked me once, who are you certified by? And I said, oh man, hang on. American Academy of Health, Fitness, Rehabilitation.
Honestly, that was a second thought. My first wife would probably tell you now I was completely nuts because I popped up in the middle of the night. I mean, sat straight up in bed, and I was like, the name is Medical Exercise Specialist. That was as far as we went, and we wrote the manuals. We didn't have a name for the organization until we had to pay for the ad, and we're like, oh, okay, well, let's give it a name. And that was what we came up with. It was honestly nothing.
Right?
Yeah. Let me tell you guys our dream moving forward, and we're going to conclude for the night after that. I want to leave this better than we found it. And we found it was nothing. So I want to leave it at some point on a very good footing. We have a couple of concerns. One of our concerns is the level of education that we're seeing now in the medical exercise or medical fitness arena. It is very cursory, it is very shallow, and I've had this from students that have done interns with us as well as doing some teaching with us. They're being told by other organizations to water down the content so that the students will be able to absorb it in the fitness industry rather than pushing the students to be better and learn how to critically think. So one of our concerns is that we will leave this new profession in a position where it can grow and move forward, but it's got a solid foundation of medical exercise foundation based on anatomy and pathology and kinesiology and biomechanics and other things. But along with that, leaving it with some type of standardized process. The thing that really bothers us is there is no standardization with this. French fries are French fries, whether you get them in Montana or you get them in Texas or you get them on Staten Island. And you can guys tell I like French fries, but I'm not going to just stop at Joe's French fries when I see the Golden Arches down the road. We want something to be that we can say it is a profession that we can grow into. And one of the things is we've got to save every MES, every PRCS, and every MBPD that we've trained, because those now form the nucleus of that profession. That's why we're doing this summit, to share your stories as to how you were able to do this and survive COVID. So my biggest concern is that we somehow or another need to establish a network of medical exercise specialists, and not a network where just anybody gets in. I'm a medical exercise professional, I want to be in your network, but a network where we know each person is providing apples and apples to apples and oranges to oranges, and they're doing it the same way with the art form along with it for that special client, that client that needs that special extra thing, or any client that needs a special extra thing. That's what we're going to strive for over the next few years. That's why the software, that's why the advanced medical exercise specialist was brought forward, because we don't want more MESs at this point. I'm not looking to certify more people. We never look to certify numbers. We look to have professionals that were able to stand in that room or sit in that room with the doctor, therapist, and chiropractor and have the competence to have the confidence to say, I know what I'm doing and I'm able to do this. So over the next few years, that's what we're going to do. We are going to release this software probably sometime in the next week or so, and then really push it in January, where you can document and do everything you need to do. It'll have access to an exercise program where you can select exercises from a protocol and give these to the client via a email portal or via a portal where they can just go online and get the exercises. You'll be able to email the reports or communicate the reports to the physician. There's some 23 reports or assessment forms that we put into this thing. And along with that, hoping that we can galvanize our MESs with sound medical practice development and professional development concepts to move them forward as professionals. That's what we're hoping to do with the summit. This is the start of it, and that's what we're hoping to do moving forward. Our goal is one day, MES will be on those grand rounds with the chairman of orthopedics or the chairman of neurology, and she will be able to share and impart some information on the exercise component after physical therapy and or physiotherapy is done. We have a long way to go, but I think now we have a definite focus, and the focus is not on certifying anymore. The focus is on building practices. So the reason we had this roundtable discussion was I wanted you guys, especially ones that have been around for a while, to share with the group what you've done, how you've done it, so that we can get those lesser experienced trainers to now, or MESs to say, okay, I've got an idea of where we're going. And with that, we now really grow this into something bigger. And with that said, is there anybody that may disagree with the idea of trying to standardize it, move it forward, and make it something bigger, more than just simply a side hustle? That's what I don't like. Oh, I'm gonna do a couple of MES clients over here, We want to make it a profession that I'm doing this all day, every day, and I built it.
I think is a great idea, Mike. You know, I was talking to somebody the other day about going to see a chiropractor.
Mhm.
And I've been to chiropractor for many years, one single chiropractor. So I don't know, I've been to a lot of them, but I know people have gone to others, and it seems like when you talk about standardizing things, the one frustration with that field I find is it's not standardized. One chiropractor will send you for an x-ray, another one will just palpate, another one will stand you in front of that screen and look at you. And I think that hurts the field. So having it standardized, the way that you approach these different things, I think is important.
And I respectfully beg to differ a little bit. I think that one of the best things we can do is have the standardization and the protocols as our baseline to refer to, to know this is the framework where we're going. But we need to look at every single client who comes in as an individual and be able to think out of the box, because what they present to us on any given day may not be what that standardization had planned on. And to do the best for them, we need to be able to visualize what their body is actually doing, what they can't explain to us, but we can see, and tweak it and go backward a little bit sometimes, or they're doing better than we thought. Go forward a little bit more than we thought we would be able to that session. I think we need to keep that intuitive connection with this firm educational background. We can't do that without a great educational background. We can't do it without having the protocols and standardization, but I think it does need to be able to ebb and flow very, like almost all the time.
Well,
and I kind of like it that different chiropractors might do different things, you know, instead of thinking this is all I can get if I go to a chiropractor, because there are others I can choose from.
Yeah, I think in my point of view is the standardization says there's a foundation for what we do. And I can tell you, sometimes we get calls from people who are working with clients, and I'm like, excuse my language, I'm like, what the hell are you doing with this client? Because it makes no sense. I don't care if you twist it on its end and point it up toward the sun or the moon. Sometimes we get things from people who haven't taken the course that are just bizarre. So my concern is, because I'm the guy that started it, I don't want to be a guy remembered 100 years from now that unleashed this thing on the public and everybody was just making up stuff as they go along. Because I can tell you, sometimes we've had some students in classes that I know are making it up, and because it makes no sense anyway. So Susie, I agree with you. We need to make sure we have the ability to shift and to look at that client and, you know, a little pinch of this and a little pinch of that, but we do that little pinch of this and a little pinch of that based on a recipe that we
a good foundation of information.
But
that's where the standardization comes from. Because here's the interesting thing: you guys don't see a lot of the newer trainers coming along. That standardization concept, it's just, there's no standard on understanding anatomy, a standard on understanding just some basic kinesiology and that kind of stuff. It's not there. What we assumed back in 1994 was, if you're a personal trainer, you have a basic understanding of human anatomy, which primarily looks at organ systems and bones and muscles. In the 27 years that we've done this, that has disappeared. Yeah, it's just not
too
there.
bad.
I'm sorry?
I said that's too bad for sure, because you definitely need some of that. I just want to chime in a little bit. I think it's a blend of what Ernie's mentioned with the standardization and Susie, because aside from having my own practice, I also work in the public healthcare system at a chronic pain center for over 15 years. And a lot of it is meeting the person where they're at. So right now I have somebody who's gone through knee replacement, and I showed him the LISM scale and the whole your plan in terms of here's the phases. And he's going, I've never had that. And because he sees that, he's going, cool, yeah, I'll do that for 3 or 4 weeks, because I know I'm moving on to the next phase.
Mhm.
Unless, hey, there's some hiccups along the way, then we have to modify some stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it's definitely a blend of the two things, and meeting somebody where they're at and being able to think outside the box. Is like, oh, I can't get to the floor. I have a lot of those clients. Great. What can I do from a seated position or standing or modified some against the wall if need be as well?
But we need to know what that box is, that standardization.
Yeah.
You know,
But even-
to be
even
able to
think-
think outside the box healthily and accurately.
But I think you can't go outside the box until you have your data that is standardized. It's got to be that everybody's collecting it the same way, and then you create off of what you find.
Yeah. And that's why we're going to do the EMR system, so we can now validate what we've been saying for the last 27 years. But I think every aspect of medicine, and I'm not saying we're medical, but every aspect of medicine now is having to validate everything, because we finally have the tools to really do it across the board. So we're in the same boat as a lot of people, but I think ours is going to come out and say it probably is better than what we've thought, because we've never had a standardized way of gathering data on our clients, from an exercise standpoint, other than some research studies that were very, we're looking at VO2 max, or we're looking at muscle bulk. We now want to look at function in groups that are outside of physical therapy. I think what we may find may be very surprising to us, because what I'm finding as I talk to MES around the country, they're making significant gains with their clients, but we can't describe it very well. We can describe it not quantitatively, we're describing it with the qualities. At some point, we need to get the quantities on that. And I think that becomes important down the road. Very important.
We did some graphing things to be able to give to a doctor, and then we colorized it so the physician could eyeball more easily right before he went to see his patient. And it did show the improvements or what hadn't. Yeah. Right. So we
now,
used that grid.
Susie, I think if we did that for a group of, it could be as little as 25 MESs around the world. If we did that for just a small group and look at that data over time, over let's say a 6-month period, that would be significantly impactful moving forward for everyone. I mean, could you imagine? Hey, there was a study done in Houston where we looked at 25 people with knee replacements, and after 8 visits on the List-Home scale, it showed a 53% improvement. Could you imagine walking into a physician's office saying, "Doc, here's what our post-rehab program can do, 53% improvement in function," especially if it's done appropriately? That's a huge component down the road. And again, you can, have the way you look at it and where you manage the client appropriate for how you see the client. But that graph or that outcome study, that's going to be huge. And it validates what we're doing. And it says to the medical community, hey, this works. So that's what we're striving for over the next few years. So we would love
writes it writes it up differently than a physical therapist would.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, because we need something that's generic to our new profession.
Yeah.
So I will ask you, if you guys don't mind, as you move forward, please let everybody know you're a medical exercise specialist. Please capitalize the M, the E, and the S in the term when you use it, because it is just that. I thank you guys for being here. As I said before, this was meeting old friends, and my old friends are doing well. I'm proud of my old friends, and you guys have set a standard. That's why I wanted to do this tonight. So a lot of folks who are new to this can actually hear this stuff is working, and you've been seeing clients for a long time, and it works. So I'll go around the room. Rosa, you've been doing medical exercise now for what, 20?
Medical exercise since 2002.
2002. So next year, January 1st,
20 years.
We'll be our 20-year anniversary. Francois, you were 1990.
95.
95.
Yeah.
Tony, you were what?
14 years.
14 years.
14 years.
Ernie, I know you were in that first course we did in Canada in Toronto. Susie in Chicago in 95. Stan, we still haven't figured that out yet. I don't know.
2001, I believe.
2001?
2000, so it's been 20 years.
Yeah, and I know Angela was
2007.
2000, and Abby was in that very first course in 94. So you guys have done a lot. We appreciate everything you've done, and I thank you guys for being here to help out with this. Now, please come back.
Excuse me, Mike, you know what I would love? If there could be a platform that at different times we could communicate with each other.
Well, I was going to be my next question, was we want to form this network. And one of the things we want to do with the network is have some type of an online presence. What I don't want is an online presence where we get on there and we talk about, you know, the latest LinkedIn, well, Netflix show and the new piece of equipment out there. It becomes more professional and a dialogue and a collaboration than anything else. Susie, if you give us until the first month of 2022, we'll have something for you. Okay.
Cool.
We'll have something for you.
Thank you.
And with that, we're going to use this new EMR as the foundation for all of it. And the reason I say that is because if we have a pot, a receptacle, we can put all the data in. And as data is going in, it's based on you seeing clients, and we're having conversations about what you're doing with the clients and how you're putting that data in and what you did to get the data. That's actually the conversation that we want to have, because that becomes a very professional, and very focused conversation. And then we can talk about all the other things along with it. So we want to have that conversation based on some type of platform where everybody is using it the same way. And it'll be based on protocols, but also be based on, hey, you know, we can, you know, tweak it a little bit. So that's what we're looking forward to. And Angela Thrasher just put her email address in. If you guys could share email addresses with each other, I would appreciate that. And to those out there that are actually watching and listening to this, this has been a great experience. I want everyone to get together to share their stories of COVID. Now, a number of you are coming back over the course of the weekend to do individual interviews. I know Ernie and Tony will be back tomorrow. Francois will be back tomorrow. We'll have a couple of our other MESs starting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. Jason Hodge, the owner of Medical Fitness Pros, will be with us. Then at 10:15, we'll have Amanda Harris. She owns Reconnect in Richmond, Virginia. She'll be with us.
Mike, do we just call? How do we join back in tomorrow at our time?
Tomorrow, you actually received an email from us, and the email has links in it, and you just go to the link, and with the link, you'll get you'll put in a password. All of you have been registered for the MedXPRO Summit. You should have gotten an email from us that registered you for the summit. If you just follow that email and log in, you should have received a username and password. It will take you into the summit, and you will find all of the links there for the various sessions. Once the sessions are completed, such as this one tonight, we upload the video. So we'll be able to probably upload the videos within hours after each segment is completed. And with that, we will also have the links in there with the passwords. Do you find it, Ernie?
You know what? I found the where to log in, but I don't find anywhere with a password. That's what I was trying to find earlier.
Okay. Ernie, you should have received an email. You probably received 3 emails from us yesterday.
Yeah, I did. Yep.
Okay. And one of those emails will give you a username and password. And if it doesn't, click the link for login. It should give you a login link, and you may have to just simply reset your password.
Yeah, I got a login link. It's asking me for a password, but I didn't get a password.
Okay, so now if you didn't get a password, just simply follow that login link if you can, and just simply reset your password, please.
Okay, got it.
Ernie, I think I just sent you a note that I meant to send to Francois.
Couple of bald Canadians, it's easy.
They're taking over everything.
How do we save the chat box? I'm not very technological.
Now, Susie, I play like I know what I'm doing, but when you start asking me questions,
Go down.
So
I got that, sir. Go down to the
part.
Yeah, right where you actually put your email address in. If you look over in the corner, you should see 3 dots. If you click on that,
Oh yeah,
it should say save chat.
Okay, wait, I'm just don't hang up on everybody until I can send this to Francois. There we go. Okay, got it.
Now, folks, I would invite you guys back. The summit is free. We decided to make it free because how can we talk about helping folks? We're going to charge them when I know a lot of folks are in dire straits. So we decided to make it free. And I will say this also, we're doing this in memory of one of our MESs that passed away in October, a young lady by the name of Lisa Bro. She was one of our MESs here at MFP. She no longer worked with us. She was just here in the community, but she was always one willing to talk to MESs and share information with them. I remember when I posted something on Facebook about her passing, a number of people contacted me and said that she had spoken with them over time and shared information. So we decided to make it free just from the standpoint of, if we really want to get everybody through this, then we just have to all work together. So we decided to make it free. So please come back tomorrow, sit in on some of the sessions, chime in, share information with us. The video for this will post sometime tonight. So please come back and spend more time with us. And when you're in a session where we're interviewing someone, please type in the chat box. Let me know that you're there, because I will certainly recognize you for being one of our roundtable members. Please, everybody.
I will be out of town, so I won't be able to partake, but when I get back, I'll listen to the recording.
Yeah, the recordings will be available. So again, thank you guys for joining us this evening. I sincerely appreciate it. It was good seeing everybody. Thank you for
Mike.
all the work that you have done, and thank you for all the
Thank you.
support. And I'm going to tell you something. We would not have been able to do this without you. You guys helped us.
Likewise.
You guys shared information with us, and you made us so good that there was another group out there that said, we want to do the same thing. And it wasn't because of what I'd done. It was because of what you guys had done. And I was not going to let them just take that from us, because I always remember I know back in those days, some of you spent your last dollars to come to our courses. And it was my great privilege to meet you, but it also was my obligation to stand up and fight for you. So we appreciate you being here. Please come back over the remainder of the weekend and join us. The sessions are free. It's good seeing everybody. Now, one thing I didn't tell you though was, once you join this roundtable discussion, I'm going to call you and ask you stuff and tell people to call you to get information, that kind of stuff, because we're all in this thing together. And let's move our profession forward, and let's make it better than when we found it. And that's what I'm going to ask everybody. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
All fair.
All right. Good seeing you guys. Thank you very much for joining us. And thank you. It's good to see old friends. It's good to see old friends doing well. All the best. Take care, folks.
Thank
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye. Nice meeting everyone.
Likewise.